Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 278, and we are happy to be here. And I'm really happy that Ryan Ponist is here.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Ponist, how much do you like podcasts?
Steve, I'm going to let you read the status update that I was about to post right now.
I'm back doing podcasts I hate for people I love. Do you hate podcasts in general? Makes it sound like it.
It does kind of make it sound like I hate
podcast.
this, but I'm going to take that down.
Yeah, you should.
There's going to be less people watching. So you wanted promotion, I gave it to you. Now you don't like it.
No, it's not that I don't like the promotion. It's just the way it comes across is that you hate doing podcasts, possibly specifically this podcast, which is, if it's true.
Right. You're right. Run it back from the credits.
Well,
is it true?
Can we just start this over? We just refilm this segment?
Nope. I mean, it's live, so.
Well, last week, one of your cohorts with the company did a podcast, and I made a comment to him. Was like, you've definitely had lots of practice because he's been a guest on ours numerous times.
Who was that?
Herring.
Oh, Mr. Jonathan Herring.
That's right.
Yes, we love Jonathan Herring.
He's only watching for you, Ryan.
Well, I appreciate that. Join me for a great time while I'm miserable. Does that make it sound better?
No,
Are
actually,
we still talking about the podcast?
I think it's getting worse.
Makes it worse.
Yeah.
Join me. Here I am. There we go.
Come listen
Here
to
I
me.
Here I am. Come
Here
listen.
you are.
Come with me, and you'll see.
We're in Steve's garage.
Do you guys want to finish? Go ahead.
No, we're good.
What
do we do on here again?
We're going to get the business out of the way here.
Let's get the business out of the way.
Thank you, guys. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast.
I was just reading that.
Yeah, there you go. Or Venmo at Bourbon and BS. The Patreon way to do it is a monthly $5, $10, $25 participation. Or you can do a Venmo if you guys want us to drink a certain bottle, want to do a one-time contribution. We appreciate all that support from all of you guys over the several years we've been doing this. Also want to thank Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. We have a cigar that will be arriving there hopefully soon. I don't know if you talked to Brian yet about it.
I did not.
Okay.
It's not actually coming.
It's nothing.
No.
What else are we smoking?
Back to the credits. No, we're good.
This is the Bolivar Gran Republica.
That is correct.
Yeah, this is
the Bolivar Gran Republica.
Brand new.
Yeah,
and we're gonna smoke this.
It's just started shipping within the last month.
So hopefully you guys will find that at a local brick and mortar if you guys have one near you, or obviously Tinderbox at Easton will be picking these up here shortly. Also want to thank Altadis USA. They have great brands like Romeo Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upman, and among others.
Other old school Cuban brands, much like this one.
Correct.
But aren't actually Cuban.
Correct. Also,
the brands are the tobaccos.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Just want to make sure.
Josh Bentley, Maria, everyone at that Charlie, we appreciate all the continued support from you guys. And then also BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver are available at Tinderbox at Easton and other places around town in Columbus, Ohio, or you can check them out through social media and they can ship you anything you'd like. The gold is made by Placencia and silver is made by Espinosa Cigars. And hopefully we will be getting something new coming out to you in the next year.
You gonna light yours up?
Yeah, I'm talking. I will light mine up. We want to do it together?
Did you light yours up?
Yeah.
See, he's already gone. That's what I thought.
So he went premature. Now you're going. You want me to go with you?
Yeah, we could do like Ghostbusters. He did his, and I'll do mine, and then you do yours.
Just don't cross streams.
Then we'll cross. Then we'll cross streams.
Yeah, we could.
I think that's great.
Buyjack.com/bourbon and BS if you guys want some swag. Like I've got the black and gray. Nate's got the red and black of the podcast shirt there. The pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. So there's some other swag on there. Some BS hoodies, BS t-shirts. We got the BS three-quarter sleeves, the bourbon and BS barrelhead logo, camo.
And don't forget the women's deep V neck.
The nice women's V.
I like a nice women's V.
You can find it at buyjack.com/bourbon and BS.
That's where I'm going right now.
Perfect. It's always nice, a good deep V. We are also drinking tonight the Piggyback from Whistle Pig, the Piggyback Bourbon. Piggyback 6, right? They say on there.
Well, yeah, Piggyback Bourbon.
Yeah.
Because they also have the rye that they call the Piggyback.
Right. Which was out. This is newer.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. Ryan, you're with Forged Cigars now.
That's correct. I've transitioned over.
You've transitioned.
Yes,
how we're gonna.
I have.
That's how we're gonna say it.
I believe that is what we say. Yes, we've transitioned.
You just got to make sure you talk into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I did move it closer. I just got to speak louder or get closer.
No, you have to point your mouth at it.
I like to look at people when I have conversations with them. I don't like the digital age.
Don't talk to us.
I can't see them. No, I can't see them. I guess I can look at him.
But you can see us in the screen.
Looking at myself seems kind of weird. Reminds me of a great story at a strip club once, but that's fine.
No.
How great.
No.
Perfect way to start this one off.
And see where we can go with this one.
But yes, I am with Forged Cigar Company now. That is correct. The Alec Bradley portfolio has been migrated over, along with several of us, including myself. And here I am. This is it.
So you were with Alec Bradley for
8 years.
Jesus, I was gonna say 5. I can't believe
8 years.
8. Jesus.
No, it's 8.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you were with them, and you had a territory that was what?
So
Pennsylvania, Ohio, what?
So when I went on with Alec Bradley, I had one territory, and then it shifted to another, and then it shifted to another, and then I got promoted. So there was like four parts of me, as Katy Perry would say. There was 4 parts of me.
Okay.
But this is the one that you're never going to take away from me.
You know, I'm not familiar. I assume those are song lyrics.
That they might be song lyrics
from Katy Perry.
Those are Katy Perry lyrics.
Nice.
Absolutely. But yeah, so but it always included Ohio. So you guys never got to go without me.
Right. And you were doing the whole business development with them.
That's correct.
Which I think the last time we spoke, it kind of that was for the last year or so.
Yeah, it was for the last year or so. I developed so much business that Forged was like, we have to buy that company. The amount of business that they're developing.
They didn't want to buy the cigars. They wanted to buy Ryan Ponist.
I didn't say that. It was just the business.
I am not saying
that.
But now you're with Forged. So all of the Alec Bradley at this time has been moved over.
Yeah,
the portfolio 100%. Is the same. Nothing's been added or taken away.
Nothing's been added or taken away.
You did release something. It was a redo. Post embargo.
Yeah, that'll be coming back. I shouldn't say coming back. It's the post embargo name. It's a variant called Blend Code B15.
Yep.
It's going to come with the original packaging that I was very big on, or at least a version of the original packaging.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, that'll be coming out later this year. So yeah, we Alec Bradley, just sort of business not as usual. Sort of, yeah, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, portfolio looks the same right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Under that
cigars taste the same. Portfolio looks the same.
Everything's the same.
You have great people like me walking through your door still.
Absolutely. But now you have brands like Bolivar.
Correct. Absolutely.
And this is a kind of an iconic brand name, Cuban brand name that is, owned by STG.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, they STG actually, they use 2 namesakes of my favorite actual Cubans, which is Bolivar and Partagas. So that's pretty cool for me. I'm a big fan of the Cuban Bolivars, a big fan of the Cuban Partagas. And now that I'm over here and I'm smoking a lot more of the catalog that they have here in the States, kind of similar actually as far as what I tend to have gravitated to. I do like the Bolivar stuff, and I really do like the Partagas stuff a lot.
Yeah, and you've got some cool stuff coming out on both of them.
Yeah, absolutely, including this.
Yeah, not just.
Do you know how long the Bolivar brand has been in the U.S.?
Oh boy,
because I remember smoking some Bolivars when I was in college.
So when the best, so the short answer is no, I don't. The main reason is like when we got brought over to Scandinavian Tobacco and they took us down to their headquarters here in the States, we went through a 1-week training on all the brands, and it was awesome. They had all the brand managers lined up. We went through everything one by one, but someone described it best as sort of like drinking information from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And like it was just so much information, and you're captivated by one thing, and then next thing you know, they're talking about something else pretty cool. And then, after that. You're
Overload,
like, all right, well, I missed that. Yeah, absolutely. So it was nice, like, especially like we just, we're coming back from the PCA trade show last week.
Yeah.
And again, they did something really cool down there where we had all these brand managers present there to explain to retailers, the differences of the brand. So it was nice for me because I did get a little bit more repetition and stuff like that to learn more of this information over and over. But no, I can't tell you how long Bolivar has been in the States.
That's fine.
And now it just got awkwardly quiet. I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Cut it.
Not at all.
Start it over again.
Gran Republica. So Bolivar only has 2 or 3, I think, blends right now.
Yeah, right now there's
very
the
small part of your
there's
portfolio.
the standard Bolivar, and then we have the Bolivar Cofradia, and then now we have the Bolivar Gran Republica.
And what is it about this cigar that we should be looking for as far as the blend makeup here?
So the blend makeup here is actually really interesting. They focused sort of on the background of Simon Bolivar and the areas of Central South America that he was kind of known for. So it's a very unique blend. You have some Ecuadorian tobacco in there. You have some Colombian tobacco. You have some Brazilian tobacco. And then, of course, there is some Honduran and Nicaraguan that they use basically to sort of just round out that flavor profile. But so very, very unique that they decided to almost like kind of tell a story or leave a legacy, I guess, of Simon Bolivar in a cigar.
So a 5-country blend?
Yeah, they say it's a 4, but it's kind of a 5.
Ecuador, Colombia,
They
Brazil,
say 4, but it's kind
Nicaragua,
of 5.
Honduras. That's 5. Last time
it's
I
5.
counted.
It's 5. It's 5. I think the idea is it's the 4 countries he was most associated with and Nicaragua. I think that's why the focus is that way. But yeah, it just comes in a few sizes here. Right now we're smoking the Robusto, which is a little bit more of like a petite Robusto.
I was gonna say that's like 4.5.
Like a Rothschild.
Yeah, almost Rothschild, not quite. So we'll say it's a petite Robusto. We have the Toro and the Gigante.
Gigante being a 6x60, I
Of course.
imagine, right? Yeah. Jonathan, you're
He might be correcting me right now.
no, you just
He
said we've
is.
had Bolivar since 1978.
1978.
Yep.
I think that was the last time I had something witty for that. I don't anymore.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that something. Can we just? Well, it's the 70s. We could
edit it out,
we
yeah.
could just shoehorn like a Steelers win in there or something like that.
Yeah, they were good in the 70s, right?
Yeah. Well, we're still pretty good.
Were.
Still pretty good.
Okay. You have a chance to get better now again.
We have a chance to get better, just like anybody.
That's right.
It's just how often they take advantage of it.
Bolivar. What's the MSRP here? Do we know?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, very cost-friendly cigar. You're looking in that $7 to $8 price point, pretty much on the shelf. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I've noticed about this portfolio, particularly a lot of the stuff that came out this year, very, very pocket-friendly. I think there's a lot of things that are pretty much in that 7 to 9 range. And of course that's going to depend on your local taxes or state taxes, anything like that. But
Is that something that STG is doing as across the portfolio, or is that more within the Forged portfolio, like coming out with some of the more budget pocket friendly?
at least as far as the Forged stuff goes, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that hit that sweet spot, and a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, performed. To me, when I started in cigars, I think that sweet spot was 6 to 8. Over the last 10 years, I think that sweet spot is more like 8 to 10 now.
Yeah.
I think is where you can get like a lot of the really, really good cigars. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came out in price points that are lower than I would say that sweet spot, that are performing much like the sweet spot cigars or better.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you're at, what state you're in, I think the average price point now is $10 to $12. So I think it's a tick higher than that, but I do think that
Sure.
you're right. If you can find something 8 to 10,
That's
as a good smoke, everyday smoke, if you will, that tastes good and the construction's strong, you're doing well, because
agreed.
like the other cigar we have on the table here is from La Gloria,
That's right.
but this is a limited. So I feel like
Correct.
Forged is, from what I've seen, is you're doing a lot of the, depending on which brand it is. I mean, La Gloria Cubana, even the Serie R, those are $11 to $15 cigars,
Yes.
based on the size you're getting.
Depending, yeah.
But they also have the Spanish press, I think, is still around. You have the
Esteli.
Esteli,
Medio
those are more
Tempo.
the more budget friendly cigars, kind of in that range. This one we're going to smoke after this part 2 is the La Gloria Cubana. That's going to be the 8th Street
Correct.
limited edition.
Yeah, that's 2022 one.
It's about $21, I think, is the MSRP.
I believe it's $22.99.
$22.99. So I mean, they've got the whole range here, right?
Yeah.
This one, Nate, what's initial response? Let me go to you first.
Medium body.
Okay.
I'd say. I'm still kind of early on in it, so I'm waiting to see if that flavor kind of shifts, but very earthy, especially probably with that the Ecuador Brazilian tobacco in there. That Colombian tobacco, I think, probably lightens it up just a little bit, which there's nothing against that. But no, it'd be interesting to see what do we know, what's the wrapper, what's the binder.
I believe the wrapper is going to be your Ecuadorian, your binder is going to be your Colombian, and then you're going to see your Nicaraguan, Honduran,
Brazilian.
Okay.
I Habano wrapper.
The Brazilian, I might have messed up that. No, I'm going to stick with it. I think that's correct. Yeah.
Ecuadorian Habano. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the flavor profile and strength kind of hits where I see a lot of Ecuadorian Habanos coming right now.
I'm going to check myself live. We're going to see if I goofed up live here.
Live.
Ecuadorian Habano on the wrapper. Bingo.
Boom. Check.
Okay, I was wrong. Brazilian Air Paraga on the binder. When we got to the Brazilian, you notice that's when I fidgeted there. I was like, that might have been the wrapper. So,
seem right.
And then your fillers, your Honduran, your Nicaraguan, your Colombian, your Brazil. Again, more Brazilian.
Matafina. And then
very unique.
Condega in the filler.
Colombia.
There's a whole
Nicaragua
in this.
And Brazilian in the filler.
Yes.
Okay.
There's two different. You got Ecuador on the wrapper.
Ecuador on the wrapper. Brazil on the binder.
Nicaragua.
Then you have Honduran, Colombian. Honduran. That's what you missed. Honduran, Colombian, Brazilian.
I was gonna say, when you said Colombian binder, I haven't seen that. I don't believe that's not a common.
It's not really anything common.
Yeah, Colombian's starting to show up in a lot of the filler combos, I feel like.
Well, yeah, I like Colombian tobacco. I mean, but it is definitely something that, at least from people that I've talked to that have done a lot of blending, it's not exactly the easiest to work with or the easiest to pair. When we worked at Alec Bradley, we used to have Eddie Ortega, and we went down one year to the factories, and they let us blend cigars, which is sort of like where the whole Corinthian leather and all that stuff came from. But hopefully
we'll see that reemerge.
Maybe we'll see that reemerge. But when we were down there, they gave us the ropes to blend. And a lot of people went with this whole oh man, I'm going to blend a cigar. I knew I didn't know what I was doing.
No.
So what I did was, of course, take a very, I would think, Ryan Ponist approach to it. So I just started thinking about cigars that I liked. And then I went and tried to recreate them. So I was basically trying to roll or trying to get them to roll a Sanctum for me. And the Sanctum featured Colombian tobacco. And I didn't know how much of it I should use. And I went to Eddie Ortega and I was like, hey, Eddie, what can you tell me about Colombian tobacco? And he goes, don't use it, bro. And I was like, well, thank you for that. Thank you very much. But it could be a tricky tobacco to sort of master from what I understand.
To blend with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's four parts or 4 different countries in the filler. That's a lot. I would imagine you're not using, it's not Colombian heavy.
I wouldn't think so.
Probably one leaf.
No, probably your Honduran, your Nicaraguan.
Yeah,
probably takes a lot of the show.
Nate, what do you think of the flavor on this?
I mean, flavor intensity, I say, is kind of middle of the road. It's not anything that's gonna blow out your palate or be super heavy on the palate. And I think this is from that Colombian tobacco in there. There's almost like this sour note.
I could sort of see
to the flavor profile.
Sour,
which reminds me of a cigar that we have smoked in the past that utilized quite a bit of Colombian tobacco that we were not great fans of.
Remind me.
The Colombia.
The CAO Colombia.
Yeah. That would use a lot of Colombian.
We had a couple on and we were drinking a lighter bourbon for that episode, like something that it was only 86.6 proof, and even that was overpowering that cigar. And I remember afterwards, or maybe during the show, Steve's like, I'm going to reach out to Ricky and see how many Columbias do you actually smoke.
I like the cigar. It's medium, right? Straight up medium.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has, right off the rip, I think my favorite part about this is like the retrohale.
Yeah.
There's this nice, just kind of toasted something flavor. No, I'm just trying. Was it, you say popcorn? Yeah. But it's like, it's something like there's a food flavor there in the retro, but I don't get it much on the palate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a nice salt and pepper potato chip.
Salt and pepper potato.
Salt and pepper potato chip.
Kettle corn.
Yeah. It's a little like drier finish.
Sure.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm just trying to like search here a little bit.
A lot of like, I feel like a lot of the cigars, particularly when you get to, I think the stuff that is like really, really traditional, when you're looking at stuff like El Rey de Mundo and Bolivar and some of the Partagas stuff, like I feel like a lot of those cigars hit that category of cigar where it's like it's a very approachable smoke. It's something that like literally you could, we're in this garage, it's hot,
Yeah.
You could smoke this basically the entire time you're out here. You're not going to feel that overburden of tobacco sort of hit to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Just very approachable, very smokable. You can just chief these things like all day long, basically.
Yeah, it's easy smoking. Ray says, toasted something. Thanks. We're trying to figure it out as we go along. I think this is the first time I've smoked this cigar. So I would say that this is, I was going to say like toasted wheat bread is kind of like where I'm really getting at. Would you like toasted wheat bread? I don't know about, the popcorn thing, but it's kind of like that kind of.
Well, and it's funny that like, we talk about this all the time about in cigars, like how much of it is something that is almost like an implanted thought. He made the sour note comment, and then you said the wheat bread, and I'm like, it's kind of like a sourdough. So like now just things are just all combining together.
Great teamwork.
Great teamwork. That's what happens when you sit in the middle. I got him on one side and you on the other.
That's it.
Stuck in the middle.
And just to comment, if you guys haven't seen this cigar up close, it's got a nice Colorado shade on it. I think it's not the it's a prettiest wrapper.
It's funny,
but again, at that price point, I'm not expecting it to.
When we came in, or when I came into the shop last time I was in town, and I handed you guys samples, I remember you and Brian specifically were like, "It's a very beautiful bag of cigars." Like you guys love the shade of all the cigars that like I'd brought in.
It's a good looking cigar. Again, mine has a bit of roughness too, I guess. With that
rustic look a little
bit. And it's got kind of the classic Bolivar look to it with the band.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, being critical with you here,
please.
It's kind of it's weird. From the side in the back, it looks like a nice band. And I get to the front, the way they did kind of a flat, no embossment on the picture.
I see what you're saying.
It cheapens the look to it. And I don't care for that personally.
I think like, because I know one of the big things that they focused on doing with this Bolivar in particular is if you look at a lot of the other Bolivars, Simone Bolivar is not very prominent. And because they wanted to go with this whole idea of like, well, this is sort of a celebration of like the Gran Republica that he was trying to accomplish. They made his face a lot more prominent.
It is.
And I don't know
if
maybe
large.
like if you did an embossing of someone's face, would that be a little cartoony almost? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I do see where you're coming from.
It looks like an oil painting.
Yeah, it almost doesn't look like it matches a little bit.
I took mine off, but I got doesn't fit the cigar well. Mine didn't.
Is it because there's almost like a little bit of an oval or box
it
to it?
Gaps on it.
Yeah.
So again, this is being overly critical on it, but again, I mean, I think you've got some embossment. It could also be like just like it wants that kind of old painting look to it.
Right.
You know what I
mean?
mean?
Like oil painting.
Oil painting. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly.
What he said.
Oil painting.
What do you say?
The last Bolivar I ever smoked was actually a Cuban one. That was
Cuban Boulevard.
That was
some of my
that was
favorites.
gifted to me from owner of a coffee shop that used to live, or the shop used to be across the street from me, and I went in one day and I'd given him some cigars because we were talking cigars. Found out he liked Cameroon, so I gave him a few Cameroon cigars. Next time I went in there, he gave me a Cuban Bolivar Petite Corona. Good smoke.
It's a very good cigar.
Yeah, I mean, we've working in shops and being in the industry and all that, we've obviously had the Cuban conversation a lot of times. Cuban makes some of the best cigars out there. They're just not the only ones that make the best cigars out there. But, to me, the correct conversation, I think, when you're talking to anybody about Cuban cigars, they're like any other cigars made in Nicaragua and the Dominican and Honduras. There's ones that are really good and there's ones that just don't do it for you. And like I said, Partagas, particularly like the D4, I love that cigar in a Cuban. And then
it's
like that
go-to,
Petite
right?
Corona, like and then the Boulevard, they smoke great. I mean, those are excellent cigars.
Yeah, anytime you guys come out, and Bolivar being a smaller branch of Forged and you guys, it is a gamble. I mean, obviously that is I guess, like, I know it's 1978, but I feel like on today's market, it's a newer Cuban brand on the market.
Sure.
It's always a gamble doing that. Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta from Altadis, all H up, and we're looking at them on the table here. You guys, between the STG portfolio's, you've got Partagas, you've got Punch, you've got La Gloria Cubana, you've got Cohiba, you've got
El Rey de Mundo,
Bolivar, making it almost look, I think, a little bit like a Bolivar. Also, it's a gamble.
Sure, and I mean,
you're like, oh, that's not a real Bolivar.
Then you look at something like Los Stados Deluxe, which was a Cuban IP, and then I believe it was last year they got together with Matt Booth, from Room 101, and he went a completely different direction with the packaging and came up with that sort of like West Coast feel to it a little bit. So I think, like, at the end of the day, there are certain namesakes and certain brands where I think people are more critical of how they come out and look.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
So like something like a Cohiba, something like that, they have to have a certain look to them almost. But like when you have something like Los Stados Deluxe, which is a very old Cuban brand, but like if you said Los Stados Deluxe, they probably would only know if they saw the Matt Booth one. That's probably the only thing they would associate it with. They don't know what a Los Stados Deluxe band looked like from 100 years ago. Like,
right. And I think Ernesto Perez Carrillo did a great job with the bringing on his father's basically legacy with the La Gloria Cubana, differentiating a lot of that to what we know that you guys now own.
Yeah, absolutely.
La Gloria Cubana. You see a picture of La Gloria Cubana Cuban, and I think a lot of people wouldn't even realize that, like, oh, like I've had that. It's Serie R. It's like, no, that's actually, I look at it, it says Habana on there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, actually Cuban.
Just ironically, because it's sitting here, I mentioned like Partagas D6, like the American Partagas Heritage line.
Now that was a bold move.
That
was a bold move.
What that's going to look like.
That's a great cigar too.
Yeah,
but it doesn't taste like a Cuban.
Sure,
I mean, but that is a great, and it was a big swing doing the Partagas red band with the Serie D, whatever, or Serie E. I mean, it all kind of looks a lot alike. What were you gonna say?
That was, and if I remember this Partagas Heritage, that was kind of for the sizes you were getting, it was kind of a pricey stick when it came out. I think it was.
We had the long ones. They were like 11.
Oh, were they?
They weren't too bad. Now the Partagas.
Oh, the 150.
The Partagas 150s, like those are $50 cigars. That's a different.
Yeah,
we're in a different ballpark there. No, that's what I was getting at with the Bolivar. But again, I guess getting to that, just to kind of round out that part of the conversation, for me, I wouldn't want to see Bolivar and you do like
a holographic band,
or you do like with Camacho and like Tarano, and I don't want to see like the
band that takes up 80%.
I don't want to see Bolivar in like this like a edgy font, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Bolivar with sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like
now I'd see Booth possibly doing something like that.
No, that'd be behind him. Like, I don't know.
Do that for a sun-grown, like call it the Bolivar sun-grown. He's got shades on.
That might be funny, actually. I kind of like that. I kind of like that a little bit. That's actually a good idea.
Call me.
Just completely spitting on the entire heritage of this. Perfect.
Did you say heritage?
Oh yeah, I like this.
Spartacus Heritage, available at your local tobacconist. No.
All right, what are we sipping on here? This is the
Some scissor.
Whistle Pig, new product.
Yeah, newer. It
product
came
order.
out. It came at least into Ohio earlier this year.
Yeah.
This is their Piggyback 6-year bourbon. Their base rye is also called Piggyback, and it's a 6-year rye as well. If you look at the two bottles, if they're on the shelf side by side, so the colors are inverted. I'm going to turn this that way you guys can see what I'm talking about.
I do like it.
So, the main part of the label where it's cream color is black on the rye, and then the writing is that cream color.
Yeah.
And then this one, the second label down here with the 6-year is
So it's
cream.
flip-flopped.
So and the angle is also backwards. So the other one angles that way instead of this one.
Well, you hold that. I'm going to move this.
So so on the rye,
Studio
the color.
magic.
So with this, they inverted the colors on the label compared to the rye, and then also made the angle that the labels and fonts going at the other direction as well.
Okay. And this is, can I see the bottle?
Yeah.
So Whistle Pig is known for what? Their
So they have a
10-year?
They have a 6-year rye. They have a 10-year rye, 12-year,
15.
15, 18. Coming soon to Ohio will be a 21-year rye. God knows how much that's going to be.
Right.
The
And
one
that's-
that everyone hunts for is called the Boss Hog. Then they've also done some ones called Farm Stock Rye. They did one that was a partnership with Traeger Grills.
Yeah.
So
Do you have the mash bill on this?
they don't release the mash bill. All they
Okay.
say is super high corn and a dash of rye.
So it's distilled in Vermont, Kentucky, Indiana. So that's the other thing that Whistle Pig does is they do the blends, right?
Well, they're out of Vermont.
How does this happen every podcast?
You want me to fix your lighter?
No, I need to borrow your.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's a Cubs lighter. You all right with that? Here, I'll give you this.
I don't care. I'm a Pirates guy, so
Yeah. They won today. 100 proof. It says small batch, level 3 char, bold flavor, new American oak barrels. What it says on here. 100%. What is that? What does that mean?
100%.
Do we know
So-
why it says 100% on there?
100%.
It says the perfect partner to piggyback 100% rye. Ryan, what do you think of this while he looks at that?
I actually don't mind this. Along with my disdain for podcasts is my disdain for brown liquor made in the States.
This podcast is made for you.
It really is.
It's just
It really is. The
So-
the attendance surges just to see just for people to see me drink bourbon and pretend like I like it.
Perfect.
No, this actually like so here's one of the things I hate about bourbon
Okay.
and whiskey
Okay.
and rye and all those things. I unfortunately have a very expensive palate. Like I will be hanging out with friends or something like that, and they'll be like, "Hey, I have something. I'd like you to have some." And I drink it, and I go, "Oh man, that's actually pretty good. What is that?" And they'll tell me what it is, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, it's like $350 a
Oh.
bottle," And I'm like,
yeah.
"Okay, sure, like that would make sense." There is another. I believe they make a rye and a bourbon in it. When I took my first sip of this before we started,
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me just a little bit of Old Carter. And yeah, I really like that one. And of course, that's not an inexpensive alcohol at all. So like that was very pleasing to me when I first took that first sip. Obviously it's a little more proof than I tend to drink, which I know a lot of people do like, particularly in the bourbons and the ryes and stuff, a little bit of a higher proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the flavor is there. I actually don't mind the flavor. Again, not something I would drink two of, but it's enjoyable. Like I'm not completely in pain here. And ironically, the more I drink it, the less pain I'm in.
It's how it works.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. Emotionally too, probably.
I think that 100% on the back of the label you're talking about kind of relates to those couple sentences that are above it, where it says our whiskey's vision knows no bounds. Piggyback bourbon whiskey's 100 proof, for a full send on flavor, because anything worth doing is worth doing 100. So 100%. You're going all in.
110.
But it's also 100 proof, which is a little bit higher than the Piggyback Rye. I think the Piggyback Rye comes in at 95 proof.
I don't care for the 100% thing on there. It doesn't make sense.
But wouldn't it shouldn't it be 100% alcohol
right?
Then?
No, it's 100 proof.
100%.
But if we're doing it 100%, let's do it 100%. These guys, they're 100 on a technicality.
But then it wouldn't be bourbon.
Like I said, I think that could have been left off the 100%.
We could have drank it. I could have got back to Pittsburgh with it. It would have worked out great. Just put it right in the gas tank. Just would have been great.
Jet fuel here.
Yeah, why not?
Jet fuel. I like it. It's good. There's the classic bourbon notes.
Sure.
I'd say.
Yeah.
I get
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say I get the caramel, the vanilla. There's a little bit of spice. I can't place the spice quite yet. What were you gonna say?
For me, it's more of a butterscotch flavor.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the dark caramel notes, or the lighter honey notes. It's more like a butterscotch, like a Werther's.
You love your Werther's.
I'd agree with that. I actually would. I'm also the guy that knows the least about this. So
No, but I mean, it's just whatever you taste, right? How about you, Sean? Pass the bottle
He
there.
was completely unprepared.
That's fine.
he's got one over there. No, does he?
Yes.
No, I enjoy it. I think it's just nice and smooth from the beginning to end. The finish, the begin on the palate and the finish is the same, and it's not super sweet, but it's got like a semi-sweet flavor to it. And I don't know, I like it. I think it pairs well with the cigar too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you want some? No.
I like the heat that it leaves on my tongue because it distracts me from the heat on my body.
There is
a
a
long
nice
finish.
Yeah, there's a nice little spice on the back end.
Yeah,
of it,
definitely.
too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to be from that quote unquote dash. Of
This is
rye
a
that they
very
have there, or-
very strange characteristic. I might be getting maybe a little half wheel right here. It's kind of like when you get like a bunch of like the hot cinnamon candies in your mouth, but without the actual cinnamon flavor. If that makes any sense. Yeah, like it's very strange.
This is a funny comment. I don't think he's doing it, but I like. Jonathan Herring says, "I like how Ryan waits for tasty notes and then piggybacks."
It's commentary like that. That's why we didn't ask him to be on the show tonight. That's all I'm going to say. But thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that.
Joe had a question. Price point. So in Ohio, $45-$46.
Which, when this came out a few months ago, it was $49.99. The state actually just dropped the price by $4.
I think people are a little confused on what to do with this because Whistle Pig is known to be a rye whiskey. Mm-hmm. So when coming out with this, obviously when the Piggyback came out, it was almost like, and I think I read it somewhere, that it is more of like a mixing Whistle Pig. And that was coming in at $50 for a 6-year rye whiskey. Versus their 10, 12, and so on. But the price point was dramatically lower.
Yeah,
because at 50 or now sub $50 here in the state of Ohio. But like even in the store where I picked it up here, all the other Whistle Pigs, including the Piggyback Rye for some reason, is sitting in the cabinet right next to the 10, 12, 15, and I forget if they had any others there. But and then this was on the end cap where they have some of their newer stuff, and which I love the way that this Kroger over here has set it up recently. They've done a nice job with their whiskey aisle there, and so they're having that on there. But this, like I said, wasn't locked up. It's like people don't know what to do with it. And then the lady, very nice. She even told me about the allocated bottles of the Buffalo Trace Bookers and the Special Reserve Weller as I was walking around the store. But then when I grabbed this, she's like, I don't know if this is allocated or not. I had to look at the list because she knew that Whistle Pig is in the cabinet. And even though it's not on the allocated list, like this was sitting next to like the Angel's Envy bourbon and rye. So she kind of was trying to figure out and she works different departments, but she works in the liquor department there at the Kroger by me. And even she was just kind of like, well, it's on that. Where'd you got it? That might be allocated. Like no one even knows what to do with this.
This is actually kind of interesting. I mean, it almost plays into like our previous conversation about like the Cuban namesakes and like perception and things like that. Like you're right. Like when you would go into a store, that's typically not something that you would just find out in the open. So if you're applying like general reasoning to it, you're like, this is strange. Like
this is Whistle Pig. Plus, Whistle Pig is known for being like, again, I think the 12 is over $100.
So the 10-year currently, I think, is sitting at $89.99, and then
12 year like $150.
$159,
Yeah.
and then 15-year is $299, and then the 18 years $399, and
Boss Hogs $5.
Yeah, Boss Hog is going to be $5, and I forget what the 21 is going to be, but it's even going to be more expensive. I think that one's going to run like $800 maybe. But I know at Carfagna's, we've got the 15 and 18 in the cabinet locked up. The others are all on the shelf.
And everyone handles that differently, right?
Yeah. And we actually sell more of the 18-year than we do the 15-year, which comes in a nice box. It's got a nice crystal decanter top. Yeah, it actually says aged 18 years on it. I've got a couple customers that a couple buddies, and about once a month they go halves on a bottle of 18.
Yeah.
So,
and we've had them on the podcast. We had the 15, we had the 12.
I believe it was Josh Bentley who brought the Piggyback Rye the first time we ever had it.
That could be. And again, I thought it was good as a drinker by itself, where again, when I remember the conversation where we were kind of saying, and I think it was someone listed it as, that's like what you put in like a rye Manhattan or something like that. And I'm like, it's not just because in reference to the rest of their portfolio, I wouldn't say that this is like a mixer, right? But I do see what people are saying. I think they went after a market where it's like, you can't have all your stuff be not only aging that long, but you also, 6 years is not young for a bourbon, right? But you also can't have all your bottles $100 and up if you're trying to get to the mass markets where there's a lot of a bread and butter type stuff. But then you have to look at it that you might be kind of cheapening your brand. You bring down the value of what Whistle Pig means if you've got a $50 bottle on the shelf at 6 years. You're like, well, why would I pay double that for a 10-year,
right,
or triple that for a 12, or what, you know what I mean, and then so on. But
so one thing that Whistle Pig did that we have a plethora. We need to ban whoever that person is.
Jesus, Alliance Kuo, go away.
What you got going on?
He just keeps making the same spam post over and over.
I'll try to do that. Go ahead.
No, so Whistle Pig knows obviously not everyone's gonna sit there and shell out some of the big bucks for their stuff.
This is great.
They have what's called the Piglets, and it's a 3-pack sampler. It's 3 50 ml bottles, and it's the Piggyback Rye, the 10-year, and the 12-year. So you got a chance to be able to try all 3 of them, and that 3-pack is $24.90. And
okay,
so we brought those in at Carfagna's right before. We didn't want them, be honest. We didn't want them. The state sent them, and they sent a shit ton of them, and they just sit on the shelf. But it's a great way to be able to try like the 10 and 12 year without having to commit, $90 or $160 for the bottle. They make great gifts. They make great stocking stuffers, because I'm sure we'll still have them come Christmas time, because I think the state sent us 10 cases of them.
They're gone. Sorry.
Good.
Let's just out of curiosity. So how much did you say this bottle was?
It's currently $45.99.
Okay. Let's forget Whistle Pig for a minute. This bottle being priced at that.
Forgotten.
How do you feel it's performing?
Say it again.
For this bottle being priced where it is, how do you feel it's performing? Do you feel that that's an adequate price? Do you feel like they could have got more for this? Do you think it's just clearly like a reach for like a lower line? You know what I mean? Like,
I would say, excuse me, I'd say this is that if this came out under another brand, to your point, not saying what my thoughts are on it being a Whistle Pig. Correct. I was just making conversation. Making points.
This has my gears.
But I would say yes, if this didn't say Whistle Pig on it, and it would say it was a maker's mark. Say it was a Well, barrel craft spirits we love, right? You know what I mean? They do the kind of the blending from different states and different distilleries. This is a nice pour. I in my opinion, I think this is a nice pour, and I think at $45, it does punch a bit above its price point there.
So I think, like, you know, if you look at, I think consumers naturally will look at things, you know, let's relate it back to alcohol. When you see the years,
yes,
everybody assumes the years as it goes up, it gets more expensive, so on and so forth.
typically.
You know, is this something where they're trying to offer something at a lower price point to get somebody to buy at a price point that they couldn't get a Whistle Pig product, in the hopes that they try it, they go, wow, this is really good for 45. What can it do for me at 100?
But when it came
You know
out,
what I mean?
I
Like,
do see what you're
but
saying.
when it came out at $49.99, it's the exact same price as the Piggyback Rye,
Which makes sense.
Which is why I think they picked that price point, because you have both piggybacks at the same price.
sister
point.
piggybacks.
Yeah.
And who
so
doesn't
it
want to
piggybacked off of the piggyback.
piggybacked
Yeah.
off the piggyback?
But no, I think
Inception.
whether this is 45, 49,
I would have
it's-
called this Whistleback Piggy Pig.
Jesus.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's cool though.
Anyway.
It's
What were you
cool,
gonna say?
No, I think
Nate, back to you.
thanks, Ollie. No, I think, you know, even at this price point at 45 or 49, I think it's a really good product for that price point, because I think there are a lot of other bottles out there at that same price point that this stacks up against quite well. I agree with Steve that, you know, with that price, it actually punches above that price point,
right,
for what you're getting, because, you know, so 6 years, there are a lot of bourbon hunters, or, you know, bourbon people, or taters, or whatever you want to call them, that like 6 years for them, that's too young. Like they try and shy away from anything.
Is this
8.
the wiggle pig, the Whistle Pig for? I was reading the piggy as I was saying Whistle Pig.
Go on. Go on.
Is this the Whistle Pig for the non-snob crowd? Is this like
Non-snob?
the day-to-day guys that just want to enjoy, you know, a nice pour?
I think
aren't gonna snub their nose like,
think
oh, this is just 6 years.
I think it can be. You have a lot of different shoppers out there. You got the guys that, you know, they want to be, you know, under $20. You got the guys that want to,
Sure.
you know, their daily drinkers are over $50. You know, you have such a wide variety of consumers out there, but I think, you know, this drinks really well for it being quote unquote only a 6 year, as some people might say. Like,
Sure.
it's
Yeah, and even that's a statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's a statement.
but no, it's
a statement. People like only a 6 year. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I hear it. Yeah,
yeah,
I trust. I get it.
6 years is
Yeah,
fine.
it's a long fucking time. Usually,
this is like it's not the 24-month guy here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Whistle back.
Usually, you're kind of looking at like $8 to $10 for every year it's aged on a lot of products.
Right. And
But
go on. Sorry.
I think I think there's a lot of people that like this. There are a lot of bottles on the shelves that, even within the same price area, this would stack up very well against. I think there's even some bottles that are a little higher price point that this would
Excuse me.
go toe to toe and stack up well against as well.
Yeah, as we've discussed, there is a lot of Ryan, not being a bourbon person, $50 is like your average right now.
Sure.
That's
yeah.
So that's your $10 to $12 price point on the cigars, right? You know, once you get above that, like you're pushing 12 to 15, now you're in that kind of $60 to $80 price point, I think. But $50 is like a lot of local distilleries. It's a lot of celebrity endorsed ones. It's a lot of, you know, it's like now you're almost just diluting the waters at the 50.
Well, I think that's where, like, because like, even though I'm not a bourbon guy, like obviously it's definitely something that runs hand in hand with cigars. So I pick up a lot. I try a lot. When I say I pick up a lot, it's just like the jargon, how you know, how people enjoy it and everything like that. And I'm also very fascinated with like marketing and things like that. So like when you make a comment like, does this cheapen the brand? Like that's sort of like that got my gears turning, sort of like where I'm like, that is sort of interesting, where it's known for this. Like, what would be the move? Like, what is the gain?
Do you stay?
What was it?
Yeah.
Was it well thought out, or
Yeah.
was it a misstep? That's sort of the thing that now I'm thinking of, and that's why I said if we just removed Whistle Pig from it, what do you think it is with the actual spirit itself? And you guys thought it punches pretty good for that.
I
price
think it
point.
does. I think it does,
Yeah,
and it's a very easy drinker. I think it's got some depth to it. I think it's got, again, it's got a little bit of that heat. Obviously, as for me at least, I think as you sip through it, even Ryan, you said it gets a little better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
As you drink it, which is typical, much like a cigar where, it's like when you first light it up, it kind of like however they, the long filler, however they broke those pieces in there,
Sure.
they're kind of like end loaded or whatever they want to call it. Sometimes it's that, and it's also your palate getting used to it, the nerve endings kind of getting used to it. We learned this, and for those that don't listen all the time or didn't hear us talk about this, is that when you can possibly like swish around that first sip, it kind of bruises the nerves, if you will, and it kind of like beats up your palate initially, so that you get rid of all that stuff. It's almost like getting rid of the ethanol.
You get rid
stuff.
of the pain, and you taste more of the flavor.
Correct. Yeah, it shocks your the nerve endings with that hitting it on your tongue and your palate, and that's a way you can do that.
Yeah, I think this is a bottle that if you didn't tell someone it was Piggyback, if you didn't tell people it was Whistle Pig and what the price point is, I think a lot of people would guess this is something at a higher price point. And I'm kind of surprised because I looked up a little bit before we started, trying to find the mash bill. Like I said, they don't say what the mash bill is. They just say super high corn. But those first few sips, like you really didn't taste much corn. Like you got a lot of sweetness, but it was, as Steve said, the caramel. I said butterscotch. You got more of those food flavor sweetness. You didn't get the the corn water that we usually see with some bourbons that are really high corn content, like anything over 75%. But then again, we've also had a bourbon on here that was 100% corn, and it had a lot of vanilla, flavor to it. And there are other aspects of that episode we don't talk about.
Which episode?
With the limoncello.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That
we
one.
don't talk about that one.
So it is for me, it's not interesting, but I'm going to make a point, and this is not a judgment necessarily, but this is something that doing a search, because the thing we have to remember too is that 6 years, that's the minimum, right? So if you're mixing some stuff from Indiana, right, from likely MGP, there could be
it has to be MGP.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Because
Starlight doesn't really.
Starlight doesn't.
Stuff, yeah.
Yep.
So you got MGP in there, right? But saying it's 6 years, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all 6 years.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum. So when you do that on a whiskey,
sure.
If you say age 6 years, it's basically if you're blending different barrels and stuff like that to it, the minimum is 6 years. Now they don't boast that there's anything higher than that.
Of course, why would?
But likely it's
right.
It's very odd. They're like, all right, so we started our own distillate on this month of this year. Yeah. We need something this so we can do it 6 years. Now it could be something that they do, but I would say if you're putting out a mass produced product like this, it will be at the very least 6 years, but it could be 7, 8 years. You don't know. And not everyone's going to push that if it's like 6 years and some of it's like 6 years, 11 months. Some of it's like 7 and 2.
I think it was wise of them to put the 6-year age statement on, because otherwise they would have to put straight bourbon whiskey. And sometimes when you see that, like some consumers shy away from that.
Sure.
Because it doesn't have an age statement.
Now, maybe you guys could educate me on this, because I know this was a thing in the production of Scotch. Are you guys familiar with the term teaspooning?
No.
So teaspooning is, for instance, there was, I don't know if it's still in practice or it was something that was done at one time where when you said, okay, this is a blended Scotch, they would literally just go to one barrel and take a teaspoon and go like that and be like, it's a blended Scotch. And it would open them up to a different market being able to do that. So like my thing is, when you guys say like everything is it has to be a minimum of 6 years.
So it's
could it be like,
so like we've had
talking
stuff
half the barrel 6 years, you know what I mean?
Well,
like is there a minimum of how much of it has to be?
No, it's what is the minimum?
Yeah.
What is the youngest juice in that blend.
Right.
That's what the age statement comes off. Because when we have Barrel Craft on, like a lot of the Barrel Craft blends for their bourbons that they release, those are typically blends of anywhere from 8 to 15 year barrels. But they don't put age statements on theirs. They just blend it. But we've talked to some of the guys from that company. Some of the juice that they're using in new batches is actually part of an old batch with some other stuff added in there as well. But yeah, 6 year, that's the minimum there. I mean, there could be a barrel in this bottle that's 20 years old, and it could literally be a teaspoon.
Right.
But
and that's kind of my thing.
You
Is
can't
like,
do it. Rums are the opposite. You can put the age statement on there of the highest aged part of it.
interesting.
You can go either way. It depends on the country it's coming out of.
Okay.
Like
Ooh.
Zacapa 23 Solara,
Yeah.
the 23 is the youngest on that one.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't recall it that way, but I believe you since
I
you're now
believe that's what Miguel.
Now you're an expert.
All right. You know what?
This is what I find interesting about this. I think this is a great daily sipper. I think this is a fine whiskey, especially at $49. Call it $50 for a bottle, depending on where you're at. But once again, just looking, I was trying to find if there was like a review that did have some more information about the age stuff, and find one. Never heard of this blog or whatever it is. They talk about it. I'm reading just as we're kind of talking. I'm just looking through it, and for the most part, it's very complimentary to this bottle. And then at the end of it, final thoughts at 100 proof makes this Piggyback bourbon makes an excellent old fashioned. And basically says for hardcore bourbon nerds who prefer their spirits neat, this likely won't be blowing any minds. But for those seeking an approachable sipper and a solid mixer, this bottle will do the trick. I agree with that, but it's just like what I found with that Piggyback Rye. People look at this, and that might be where we have those higher priced Whistle Pigs, and they're looking at this as like, oh yeah, this is great in a cocktail. I'm like, don't just diminish it. It's not like a $15 bottle here,
Right.
It's not like this is sippable.
Well, and I think like my big thing is like Whistle Pig is definitely one of the names that you constantly hear when people talk about bourbon and rye, or you said they're known for mainly ryes, right?
This is the first bourbon they've put out.
So like my thing is like for them to put their name on a product like this at this price point, I think at the end of the day, if people view it as still a quality product, they're probably that was probably their thought process.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring our level of quality to even something at $45. I don't hate it.
Right.
Well, and
absolutely.
I do kind of agree with some of the points that review made, because for the bourbon aficionados, and I don't think there's enough complexity and depth with this product necessarily for them at that price point, because we talked about the butterscotch, vanilla, caramel, little spice on the back, but that's it. There's not a lot more going on.
I'd agree with that.
it, but I also, it'd be a rather pricey cocktail using a $50 bottle, but I agree that this would be good in an old fashioned or Manhattan, because
not taking that away,
because of the proof. Because I get people, I had a customer come in one time, and their husband had got mad at them for using a $95 bottle for old fashions. And I was like, well, here.
Sounds like they need to see a counselor.
I was like, well, here, use this one instead. It's a $32 bottle. It's 100 proof. So you throw whatever mixers you want at it, and it's still going to have enough body and alcohol flavor to it.
You could put a Luxardo cherry in this.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's it. So that is that. I would, so Whistle Pig, when we did the 12, I don't think I was alone on that episode. That was several years back, but it was not our favorite. And for a $150 bottle, I'd drink this over that.
The 12-year?
12-year.
So the last time we had it, I believe, was the 2020 Valentine's Day episode.
Okay.
And Tanya brought that in.
That's what I mean.
It was $126.
$126.
$126.
Right.
And now it's gone.
$150
Now it's $160.
$160. okay, either price point, I'd drink this over it.
Yes, I agree.
And the Piggyback rye, I'd
yes,
drink over that.
Absolutely.
You know, and I get what you're saying, Nate, and I appreciate the comments from this.
I do have
this
the 15-year at home, by the way.
I like the 15-year. I'm not going to spend $200 on it. $299.
Yep.
But this is a bottle I would love to do a blind taste test with people that haven't had it. You're right. Maybe not the most complexity, but I do think that going back to it, and maybe we're beating the dead horse here, putting Whistle Pig on it and putting a $45, $49 price point on this, you're just putting these thoughts in people's head. Oh, it's not as complex. It's $50, 6 years. You're like, basically just like shitting on your own product.
An American brown spirit Neanderthal.
Yes.
I don't hate it. I'm just going to keep going back to that. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'll drink it.
And it's funny to me that, for example, we did this not too long. I forget what we were drinking during the podcast, Nate, but after the fact, I did a blind taste test and I brought out a rye.
Oh yeah.
And you were like, "Oh, this is something. This is definitely more complex and all that stuff." It was Sazerac rye, which I love.
Yeah.
29. I just bought 4 bottles in Chicago for $25.
Yep.
And it's like, that's for most people, that's a mixer. But it's like, again, when was the last time you tried it neat, blindly, without knowing the price, without knowing like, Woodford regular. I don't drink that by itself, but I'll put Woodford in an old fashioned or a Manhattan. It's like, well, again, you got to get out of your own head. Same thing with cigars. You got to blind taste some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes the brand name or the price tag will put stuff in people's heads. The bourbon nerds, whatever you want to call them. I think that's what that guy said on there or whoever wrote that. It's like, I get it. I mean, this is not the most complex one, and I'm not defending this. I don't have any identity to this bottle here, but I do think it's the same thing as that Piggyback Rye comments that we were talking about, that people were talking about on that episode with, I think it was Josh Bentley. It's getting shit on as like more or less a mixer for the most part. It can be a sipper, but it's more of a mixer. And it's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a damn good bottle.
I think it's a fine bottle. And again, $50, put this up against a lot of the other $50 bottles out there. It's like we both said, Nate, it punches way above that. Yeah. And there's plenty of $50 shit bottles out there because of whatever reason. And I think I don't like those I don't care for that. I think that's very belittling, and I think it's very ego driven.
Yeah.
From the bourbon enthusiast or the cigar enthusiast when they talk like that.
Spicy.
Well,
I like this.
Well, I mean, I know.
It's getting spicy.
Well, I mean, I know. No.
Fuck it.
Let me grab the mics first.
Thank you.
But no,
the mics would last better than that bottle on the garage floor.
No, as soon as you said that, Steve, I was thinking of some of the other bottles we have on our shelves that are around that $50 price point, or even some that are higher. And there were a couple higher price bottles that came to mind. I won't say which ones, but they're $85 bottles,
right? And
I will take this over any of those couple $85 bottles that popped in my head.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
But there are some other, in that $50 price point that I think this goes, this stacks up well against. So, Angel's Envy bourbon, Old Forester Statesman, the regular Heaven's Door. There's some other ones in that $50 price point that, you do a blind taste test. You might be surprised where this one stacks up against some of them.
Some discussion in the comments.
What do we got?
You guys are listening to the audio after the fact. I mean, Wednesday nights, or depending on where you're at, obviously we have some listeners, other countries like Ray. It's the morning on Thursday. But going back to your comment about teaspooning, Ryan, why would you add a teaspoon of something to claim a blended whiskey when a single malt is considered better? And then there's several comments after this.
So I'm rusty on the reasoning why. It I believe it had something to do with the way that you were allowed to market or sell it. I don't know or maybe even export. It might be something to do with that.
Could be.
But there was some sort of advantage you would get by being able to say that something was a blended Scotch. And like I said, one of the ways they got around it was teaspooning.
Right.
So, and it could even be, and like I said, I'm rusty on it. It could even be like we're talking about with the age expression. If you have a 3-year-old Scotch and you take, a 12-year-old Scotch and just teaspoon the 12 into the 3 and you go, now we have a 12-year-old blended Scotch. Like,
I don't know the laws on the.
Like I said,
On the Scotch
I know that
age.
there's something with it. There was some sort of advantage that you would get with that. I'm foggy on what that would be or why that was, but there was a legitimate.
If you blended the different years, you wouldn't have to put an age statement.
There was
on the
something to it,
bottle.
right?
'Cause,
I
like-
can't remember what it was.
like-
It might have been exporting, maybe. I can't remember. There was something to it.
Like I think the only Johnny Walker product that is age stated is the 18 gold, and but it's not. It's actually not even an age statement. It's a blend of 18 scotches.
Yeah, that's a marketing thing right there.
Yeah, so it's not even an age statement on that. So none of their stuff, I don't think even has an age statement on it. It's just a blended scotch.
Got it.
So
You're looking this up right now, aren't you, Ryan?
I did. I had to. So actually, the first one that came up was what are teaspoon whiskeys. So it's teaspooning is the practice of blending minute quantities of single malt into a cask of whiskey produced at another distillery. As only a teaspoonful of liquid added to the spirit is no longer legally a malt whiskey and cannot then be attributed to its originating distillery.
So you could take a lesser known distillery and then you could teaspoon something from a greater distillery,
Right.
greater known or whatever.
Right.
And then therefore you can say like we blended
Right.
it at
So the approach
Johnny Walker or
the
whatever.
approach means that the resulting spirit is unchanged as it's still over 99% single malt, but cannot be bottled under the distillery name by any broker independent bottler. While that may sound absurd, it ensures control of the distillery brand under the cask brokerage system.
So there you go. There is a reason for everything.
There's a reason for it.
Interesting.
I hope that helped.
look at Ryan.
I
bringing
think
some
so.
knowledge.
See, I taught you guys something by reading off the internet.
Hey, look at
I knew
you.
it was there though.
You did.
I found it.
The internet or the no?
Both.
Right. All right. So,
What else we got?
well, I can't see
Any other
this one
comment? You
yet.
can't see it yet.
Brad's yet. I see Brad Sibley up on the
Yeah.
screen. It hasn't showed up.
Brad Sibley.
It's up
Shout
there.
out Brad Sibley.
I can read it.
Let's put it on there. See what we got. Oh, I like the beginning of that. Steve is right on. Thank you, Brad. Whiskey is like art or watches. Buffalo Trace is a $25 bottle that people stand in line for hours for. All about your preference. Why would you ever pay big money for a bottle that you don't like? Never shit on someone's choice of whiskey of choice. I agree.
Steve doesn't like to discriminate.
I don't. I don't. The egos that are involved in whiskeys right now are, we talked about this recently on the show, where it was just like the cigar industry, I think it's more mature because I think the cigar boom was before the bourbon boom. No, in a sense of you still have those people,
Sure.
but very opinionated people. Obviously, that's how people get likes and hits and shit like that on,
Sure.
or gets recognition because they can get sponsors, whatever. But the everyday consumer, you still have that. I think that the bourbon boom is still not in the infancy stages, but it's super young. And so you still have people walking in asking for stuff they've heard about, and they could be very new to bourbon.
Right.
But then, and I remember this going to some of the meetups with Ohio bourbon lovers, or it was actually the Hunters with Bob Brayer and stuff, good friend. And it was like, I remember I brought like an E.H. Taylor small batch, which for me was like tough to find. And it's the first one I ever bought. I'm like, I'm going to bring that. No one touched it because we're beyond, like, I got like 8 bottles of that. It's like, I bought this off this is a gift. I brought it for you guys. And it's like, I have a barrel pick from a store in Arkansas that it's like,
It's
okay. Well, and that was like
yeah.
to try something different, which I can appreciate, but it's like and I know like they've all had that E.H. Taylor small batch, but it was like, that was like probably my first experience with the fact that it's like, you brought that? Thanks, $35 bottle. I got like 8 of those at home.
Well,
It's
and
like,
again,
I'm new here, and it's like people going in looking for something, like someone coming in to look for like and this is different, but like the cigars, like coming in for a Davidoff or a Cohiba. I'm not going to be like, you can get a way better cigar than that for half the price. If not, like that's like $30. You can get one for $10. That's Cohiba shit. It's like,
well, and around it, like sort of back
smoke,
to
man, like
to like our opening conversation, like about like Cuban cigars. Like,
yeah,
I don't really go out of my way to get Cuban cigars. I don't. And again, like it's not because like I don't think they're good or I don't like them or whatever. It's just one of those things where it's like I do feel that the channels that we have access to in the United States, we have a ton of really awesome cigars to get our hands on, but to your point, like when someone gifts me a Cuban cigar, I always greatly appreciate it because I know they took extra time
Absolutely
to go out of their way to get that for me. And that's a generous.
Yeah.
Time is a generous thing to give somebody. I don't look at the gift for the sake it's a $50 Cuban. It's the fact that person had to do something extra to get that to me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know when I do that bourbon and bullets event or bullets and bourbon event at my gun range, like there's a whole share table and there's a nice diversity of stuff that's there because the general rule is if you want to drink something off the share table, you got to put something on the share table.
Sure.
But you will have people that definitely want to bring like one of the cheapest bottles they can, just with the hopes that other people are going to bring some high end stuff for them to drink all night long.
Right.
And there was one at the end of the event. One of the staff was like, "Hey, did you guys leave this bottle?" And we just looked around like, "No." You guys want to take it home? No.
What was it?
Southern Comfort.
Fuck, I'd take it home. I don't have any Southern Comfort inside. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Man,
Get some blue schnapps.
And
Southern Comfort, man, that's sweet.
The next event, that bottle was still there.
Mm-mm.
They put it back out on the.
I was just kind of drunk off Southern Comfort.
But I also remember there were
can't do
times
it.
where I brought what I thought was a nice bottle, and yeah, same thing as you talked about, Steve. No one touched it.
It's just a comment on where we're at with this, and I'm not surprised, but looking for the age stuff on this about 6 years, I was hoping that someone would have gotten more information than just giving their opinion of the bottle, and they just regurgitated. But then they gave their opinion on the tasting notes, and I'm reading it. It's like most of it's like really good, and at the end of it, it's
Absolutely.
like this is a good mixer or a sipper,
Right.
unless you're like again, I'm putting words in that person's mouth. It's like if
Well,
you're not really into bourbon, like you might like this. It's like fuck off, man.
Well, we like at one of the cigar shops, we play a game called Amateur Cigar Review Bingo, and like one of the ones we still talk about to this day, this cigar review, was this guy was talking about a cigar, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like you get a lot of smoke off it. It's this, blah blah blah." And he's like, "I would probably rate this cigar an 8 out of 10. I'll never smoke it again." And it's like, you wouldn't what? like an 8? Like you wouldn't smoke an 8 again? Like
What's
wow.
a 5 look like?
Like, yeah. What's a 10 look like? I don't know.
10.
It's not a lot of room up there.
If not 8, yeah, exactly. A lot of SoCo comments out there.
Oh yeah.
Went to Bruin once, and there was like some dudes in the parking lot. They're like, "You guys want to drink?" And I'm like, "What do you got?" He's like, "Southern Comfort." I'm like, "Sure, man." He's like, "We're mixing." I think it was like sweet tea. I was like, "Oh, let's see how that goes." I was like, "That's yeah, I'll take another. Yeah, I'll have another. Sure, you're offering. Cool. Let's
Diabetes.
Jesus.
SoCo is one of those bottles that when I was young, I got way too drunk on it one time, and like it doesn't happen very often to me, but
That's
like
what's going on here.
I got
Yeah.
way too drunk, and I can't do it anymore. Like I can't even smell it. Like
Yeah, there's the comments there. You got Jonathan saying SoCo reminds me of rough college nights in Athens, Georgia. Then of course Kristen says same, but Champaign, Illinois. And then I like Jonathan here. Steve's right. I drink the SoCo. No one's drinking that? Is that free? I'll take it home. Cool.
I'd be taking the tea to the face.
That's right.
Like just oh man.
All right, this is where we round out part 1, rating time, whiskey, cigar, and the pairing. Best is 10. So, like you just said, 8 out of 10 for that
8 out of
person.
10, I'll never smoke it again.
Oh yeah, shit.
That's actually
I gave it an
I'm
8.
just gonna give that. That's
I'm
what
gonna pour it
8
out.
out of 10. I'm never gonna
pour
smoke
it
it
out. But yeah, so we rate 3 different ratings. Sean, you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Sean Wilkinson in the audience, been a frequent guest on the
right.
show, but he's also a more regular guest in the garage
Audience member.
audience, live studio audience.
Yes, live, coming at you live from Tanager Woods. The Whistle
Whiskey,
Pig,
yeah.
the whiskey. I'll give it an 8. I like to get a bottle of this and just spend some more time drinking it just to see how.
Just explore the room.
Yeah, just to see
like
how
it.
it
Your
goes.
thoughts?
Just to go on that journey with it. Like I said a lot. I give it an 8. The cigar, I actually like that a lot. It was 8.5. I've never had that popcorny, unique taste or flavor, even on the palate. I've never had that before.
It is interesting to me, when you smoke a cigar, because we made I'll take ownership. I made the half wheel joke earlier, but like, because obviously there's all these descriptors and things like that. It is something though, like when you do smoke a cigar and you get like something that just is so distinct and pops right out to you, that like there is something very, very special about that. So I appreciate that 100%.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cigars that have similarity in taste, and you can distinguish the different flavors and what you're getting, the notes and everything, but it's not too often I get something where I'm like, holy shit, that's completely different, and I do like to know that there's things out there that can really kind of knock your socks off. So definitely 8.5 for that. I just wish it was, do they have a bigger size of that? Or is
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
It goes up
they
to
only get bigger.
Yeah.
They only get bigger.
Yeah.
A small
and
guy.
you guys don't have these yet at the shop?
Not
Not yet.
Okay. Because I would like to get maybe a Toro or something on that, just to get some more
absolutely.
The pairing 8.5 as well. There wasn't, again, that opposite of like hot and mild, or sweet and spicy, whatever you want to call it, but I think they paired well together, so an 8.5 for that as well.
Nice. Appreciate that. Ryan, how about you?
Well,
Ryan Ponist, how about you?
Thank you.
You just like,
Well, it was
Thanks
just
for
weird because you were
clarifying.
like looking forward when you said it. I was like, is there Ryan in the audience? Like,
No,
I don't
he's
know.
looking at them.
That
people
right
out there.
He's looking at you in the monitor.
So this is going to be an interesting one for me.
Make you real. Like, boom.
I'm gonna give the
Whistle Pig, Piggyback.
the
Bourbon.
Whistleback Piggy Pig.
Yep, that's it. You nailed it.
I'm gonna
Pig.
give that.
First try. Good job.
I'll
Nailed
give
it.
that an 8. That's pretty solid for me. I'd give that an 8. As far as the cigar goes, I'd probably give the cigar probably 8.5. I will say this. This is where this is gonna be surprising. I'm gonna give the pairing like a 7.
You don't like it.
It
You
wasn't
don't care for it.
I didn't care for it. I think it's the only reason I'm giving it a high rating is because both of them are independently good. I personally felt that drinking this and smoking this, I do think that this might have been a little much for this smoke. I don't know
With you
that
on that.
there
With
was
you.
really anything going on between them other than a fight over who was controlling my taste buds at any given time.
Yeah.
That was kind of
a
it.
little better on their own.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe go lighter on the proof.
Yeah, a little lighter on the proof, maybe
Yeah.
a little heavier cigar. I do think that, even though, like we said, like, I don't necessarily think that was particularly a crazy depth or had a lot going on to it as far as the drink goes, but I do think it had a lot of bold flavor to it. I do think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So, like, in that heat aspect of it,
Mhm.
like I said, just a little distracting from a cigar of this flavor profile and this strength.
With you. It's good.
Steve Crane.
Nate, you want to go?
Yeah.
Oh. Go ahead.
On the bourbon, I'm giving it an 8. This is actually the first time I've had it.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, so I did enjoy this. I think it was a good bottle, good price point for what it is. Not as corn heavy as I was expecting, when I read that it was a super high corn mash bill with a dash of rye.
That'd be a bold move for Whistle Pig to come out with a corn heavy
Bold move, Colin.
Yeah.
Let's see how this plays out
Yeah.
for him.
when they're known for the rise.
Yes.
Good quote.
But no, I think it's definitely a solid bottle. Not the most complex bottle, but it's got good flavor, and for the price point, like we talked about, it punches above its weight class. I think it drinks a little bit smoother than 100 proof as well.
Yeah.
So, cigar, I'm a 7.5 on the cigar. Solid smoke. I see what they're going at with the blend, the price point. Not an overly complex cigar.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's a solid smoke. I don't think there's anything necessarily great about it, but that's not what they're going for with the blend and the price point. Like, there's a story behind the blend. They're not sitting there trying to make, an $8 cigar taste like a $30 cigar. It's just a solid, daily smoke. And there's
Daily smoker.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, daily smoker.
there's not many
100%.
daily smokers out there that are gonna come in sub $10 and also be, a 9 or 10 rating. Like that's hard to accomplish.
Right.
But I think it's a solid cigar for what it is. And, I think Bolivar's kind of gotten lost over the years.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
I think this is a solid way to get consumers familiar with the product,
Sure.
because I'm assuming that the other blends that they're putting out under that name are just going to be just slightly higher in price and complexity and flavor.
I'd be curious to see how it's going to happen. Especially because the original Bolivar is a little bit more pricier of a cigar.
Yeah.
You're easily in that 10 range and up. So I think seeing the Cofradia come out a little bit softer price point than this, very budget friendly price point.
I'd like to smoke the original Bolivar.
Maybe we
again.
should.
Yeah.
And then
if you have any,
I
not
don't.
tonight, but
I
I'm
don't.
saying
We're not doing it tonight.
pairing,
No, I'm saying like samples later on, like for. Never mind.
pairing, I agree with Ponist. I'm a 7 on the pairing. I think this bourbon does overpower the cigar.
Yeah.
That's why, quite a bit I was sitting there just focusing on the cigar and letting the whiskey rest and just sit there. So that way I could actually get the flavor of the cigar. Because like I said in my initial review of the cigar, it's medium body, but also I think medium flavor strength.
Mhm.
So it's not something that's going to just coat your palate and blow out your palate with flavor. So it's one of those that smoke it by itself, or if you're going to have something to drink with it, something that's on the lighter side. So that way you can actually get the flavors of the cigar standing out a little bit more on its own, because even though this bourbon's not all that complex, because of the richness of that butterscotch and a little bit of spice, it does, and proof, it does overpower the cigar a little bit.
One interesting, and I was just reminded of it when I went for a drink of water right now. We talked about that, like sort of like lingering heat. And earlier I even like took some water to even try to like, okay, I'm going to cleanse myself a little bit for this next puff of the cigar. Kind of really didn't work. Like,
No.
you know what I mean? Like it really didn't do it for me. Like,
You hand me that water dropper. I'm gonna do that.
you want to open it up a little bit?
Yeah, based on that comment as I go on my ratings.
Okay. Hold on, everybody. We got a timeout. Steve has to
No,
open
no,
this
no,
up.
You got to put your lab coat on, get
Yep,
the beaker.
yep. Hold it up to the light.
The water or
All of it.
1, 2. That's it.
2.
And
Oh wow.
got a nice
Yeah.
action
Little
on that,
skeet,
right?
Skeet.
Well,
Skeet,
it's
skeet.
because you had a nice squeeze there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look at that. Swirling
That-
around.
I'm
This
not
is
making
getting,
that comment. Shit.
it's getting serious. There's no BS about this podcast.
Oh, there's a lot of BS.
It's coming.
It's coming in part 2, maybe. Does that open it up, or
Does.
how so? Like, is it bring out sweetness, bring out spice?
It takes away that that's what I was looking for. If you want to try, it takes away that finish we're talking about.
Yeah.
It really does. Got him. Good range. That wasn't me. That was Nate.
I was like, what the fuck?
All right. So for me, the whiskey, I will stand by. Like when I look at like a daily drinker at 100 proof, my go-to for
Oh, I know.
no money, really
Half the
investing
price.
in it. Yeah, half the price.
I know.
Old Granddad.
I know. No.
No, I don't like old, and that's 114. But old Granddad 114 at $130, right? 29.
Old Granddad,
Old Grad
$32.99. But there is the bonded Granddad as well.
It's just that's too corn forward for me. Old Forester 100 is
There
about
it is.
$23 in the state of Ohio. This is a little more subtle. This doesn't have the burn like Old Forester 100 does. I mean, for a daily drinker, for me, where like if I'm just going to I'll look at what I have, I don't want to really kill anything or really even take a dent out of a bottle I can't get. That's where my standard is. This, I again, just like cigars we talk about, it's not twice as good as a half-priced bottle. But I do. We already said it. This is definitely it drinks a little bit above the price point, in my opinion. I'll give it an 8.5. I think for $45 especially, $50 most places. I don't know what the MSRP is. But if you do a Google search on this bottle, a lot of it's coming up at 49 or 46 to 40. So you're basically 45 to 50. Great price point for a bottle like this. It drinks well. I will agree that it would probably make a very good cocktail.
Yeah.
Not going to negate that or talk down about that, but on its own and adding a couple of drops of water just now. And Nate, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. Again, this is not our first pour, so again, you already muted your palate a little bit, but I do think that does make it even more of a daily sipper. Daily sipper is something that's what I'm looking at for 50 or under. What do you think? Did it do anything, or are you still where you were?
So I kind of chewed that one. Maybe I shouldn't have, because that was the first pour. That was the first sip I actually chewed, and that actually brought out more spice.
You brought air in there?
No, I chewed it. Like,
Okay.
I mean, like try and macerate the whiskey.
Okay. Different than me. Cigar. I'm a good, it's somewhere between 7.5, 8. I mean, I want to say 8, but this is not something I'd buy a box of. But it is something that if it's sub $10, right?
Sure.
It's one I'd recommend. As someone that works in the retail side of a brick and mortar of the cigar industry, what are you looking for? What's your price point? You know, that is such a tough price point to recommend cigars anymore. I look up and down at Tinderbox at Easton. We have, price on that main wall close to 500 options, and then you have so in the store 600 plus options, and they say I want something $10 or less, medium bodied. This would be one I'd recommend
For sure.
Okay.
So that's where I'm kind of like price point. What the construction was great. I mean,
Yeah.
great construction. I'm not gonna to battle that. I'm a nitpicker sometimes on the branding. I have not seen the box, but it's like, yeah, if this was a $15 cigar, I'd say not like to regulars. I'd say it's not really worth it. We probably wouldn't even bring it on.
Nitpicking was last week's cigar. We nitpicked the shit out of
We
that.
did. But so yeah, I'd say 8, maybe a little bit below an 8. This is not your most complex cigar, like you guys mentioned. This is a good daily smoker. This is a medium bodied. People that are looking for something that is slightly above a long filler bundle cigar, but not necessarily your aged complex cigar at even the $12, $15 price point. This is accurately priced. This is a pleasant cigar, and there's a little bit of a story behind it, which is always fun too.
Sure.
If you're looking for a Bolivar, I love Bolivar Cubans. It's like, no, don't smoke that.
Right.
If that's what you're looking for, this is not
Right.
Again, confusing marketing when it comes to that.
Sure.
Like we talked about the Whistle Pig. Now we're talking about the Bolivar here. The pairing, I'd say 7.5. I'm about with you guys. It's not terrible, but this is something that if I had this in my humidor and I had this on my bar,
I would have probably enjoyed
I'm a
both of them better on their own.
yeah, but it's not a terrible pairing. It doesn't like make me want to not smoke or drink either one. Like if we're sitting on the back porch and I'm like, hey, have you had Whistle Pig? And we were smoking the Bolivar, I wouldn't be like, let's drink that another night when we're smoking something else. I'd be like, oh, let's try it. You know what I mean? Because it's fine. It's a fine. They go well together enough, but I wouldn't call it a good pairing.
If for some reason,
Yep.
some reason one of your friends comes over to hang out on the back porch late at night, and you go to your bar and the only bottle is Whistle Pig Piggyback Bourbon, and you look in your humidor,
He actually said
and the
that right.
only cigar that you have is a Bolivar Gran Republica, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
like
what I'm
that.
saying.
That's really what it is.
not a
Like
great
it's
pairing.
not like you're gonna be like, oh god damn it, we can't do these together.
We're not
Like
gonna smoke tonight.
this is my good company. Like like it's gonna be absolutely fine. Not probably the ideal pairing. That's it. If you have multiple options,
we could pair this better.
we can
both
pair this
sides
better
of it.
on both sides.
sides.
Absolutely.
And so we'll see how, as we go into part 2, we light up this La Gloria Cubana 8th Street. We'll talk a little bit about that in the beginning of part 2 because I do want to highlight that. But I'm interested to see how that goes together. I'm not expecting miracles, but I think it'll go better than this.
I
Do
think
you
it'll go
believe
better.
in miracles?
All right, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. If you're listening live, stay tuned for
Put
part
some water
2.
in your glass or something. Like you can't cheer.
You want just a dash of that there? Yeah.
No, actually, I will go back to this. Believe it or not. I'm going to have a little bit.
I believe it. You got to
I'm going to have.
Cheers with an empty glass.
Why not?
I think it's bad luck.
Who said that?
Me?
Wine people.
You seem to be doing fine.
All right, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll have a quick intermission. We'll stay live, but if you're listening to the audio, make sure you click over to part 2 and listen. We're going to talk about is it worth the gamble, and we'll get some other people involved in the conversation, including the live audience online. In the audience, looks like he's crying. Are you all right? Allergies.
It's all right.
Sure.
I thought the pterodactyl value. The large.
Cheers,
large,
guys.
Maybe insect here. That didn't work.
Just trying to keep it quiet so I can find that to break it apart. What time is it here? Hour and a half. We went long on that.
We did.
Well, when you got a cigar guy.
Got the cigar guy here.
Cigar guy.
Tim Dodge. First smoke tonight was the Bolivar Gran Republica, brand new from Bolivar. We can talk about this, I think, in the intermission, and then.
You want? I was going to talk about you.
I haven't lit it up yet, so that's going to be.
Have you smoked this?
I smoked a damaged one when it first came in.
Okay. So you got the flavor at least.
I got it. I need a cutter. I
need a cutter.
I always have a punch on me just out of sheer.
Would you prefer a punch?
Convenience? No. I prefer a cutter. That's what I'm saying.
Do we want to get Jonathan Herring on this conversation?
Oh yeah.
Why? You don't think I can do it well enough?
No, you'd be fine, but just another perspective.
No, I think what you guys got. I can get my card. I can go to fun.
How about that? It's assuming how much Jonathan's had to drink tonight.
That's true.
No, we'll get Sean in the audience on this conversation. We'll get if you want to get Jonathan on.
We can get Jonathan on, absolutely.
Not taking away from you. I'm just.
Man, that was a great opportunity to be like, Jonathan sucks. I wouldn't get him on.
Yeah,
right. That's what I mean. That would have been a great opportunity. That would have been a great opportunity.
Fuck that guy. You know what I really think about Jonathan Herring and Forged Cigars? You're still alive.
Well, they're great. All of it.
I'll say this in the intermission. So when first heard that Alec Bradley had been acquired by STG, Ryan, you were one of the first people I thought about.
Well, I appreciate that, I think.
And when I heard that they were keeping you on board, I was very happy.
Well, I appreciate that.
And then when I heard that you were going to be our Forged Cigar rep, I was like, thank fucking God.
That's good.
I heard that, I was super excited to have you. You know,
we're getting back. We're getting back in the saddle, and
you've always been a great brand ambassador. For the people that you've worked with.
We actually have brand ambassadors.
That's true. That's true. You've been a great face of the company.
Thank you. I'll take that.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was super excited to have you back.
Now I'm Bolivar man. I'm the Gran Republica Grand Ambassador. The Grand Republica Ambassador.
You're just grand.
Just grand.
Just grand.
It doesn't seem that hot until you have this lighter with this high performance fluid.
Yeah.
Burning a cigar 6 inches under your face.
Yeah. You lighting a cigar also kind of reminds me of another Ryan Newman that we had on the podcast. I already knew you were going to that we had on the podcast recently. Because holy shit, when that guy lights a cigar, man, does he go through butane. He goes through a shit ton of butane when he lights a cigar. And then
turn this one down.
And then the other thing, because when we had Ryan on 2 weeks ago, he's also grabbing my lighter like every time. So I'm like, well, shit, that lighter's gone. I need to. We'll bring Jonathan on here in a second. We see you, Jonathan. But he kept using my lighter. And I'm like, well, that lighter's done for the week. I'll refill it on Friday when I get to the store. But like anytime his cigar gets just the slightest uneven burn, like on that one, right? You're talking millimeters difference between those two sides.
To most people, not even a thought.
Because it's going to balance out. Ryan's sitting there, and he's going to take that lighter, and he's just going to sit there and torch that one side that's burning 2 millimeters slower and just go through a tank of butane per cigar. Welcome back, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Ooh, Ryan's reaching for the drop.
Believe it or not, I actually did.
You did it at the very first pour.
I did at the very first pour.
Yeah, you did.
We're just using our own water. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
That's what I did.
Okay.
You want to use my water?
You want some of Steve's backwash, my backwash, your backwash?
I didn't know if that was the protocol for just backwash SETI.
Yeah. And then we just all reuse the same dropper.
Right. That was my thought.
And then you got to try and squeeze it in.
I like 3 because it's lucky. Look at it in the light now.
I actually
let the light fuse it together.
Got Tyler Jones watching.
What's he doing?
I actually think that for me personally, adding the water to it, less of the butterscotch type of flavor to it, and a little bit more palate. Whereas initially, back in. Now I get a bit more up front as well.
Maybe we should add a couple drops of the cigar, see what happens.
Nah, you don't need to.
Wait, we're adding drops of what to the cigar?
Water, yeah.
Of water? Are we going to take cedar and paint it?
We're going to close it up.
Close it up.
Oh, wonder if anyone knows that reference that I'm
What do we got there?
Sure,
Only
Steve
cups.
My cups
runneth over. That's cute. That's cute. How we doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Did you make it back all right after your flight?
Yeah, I did. Ryan took me to an amazing pizza place in Pittsburgh. I believe it was Sunday.
Yep.
Holy shit, it was good.
And then I drove past your hotel at 2 a.m. and I was like, there he is sleeping up there.
I sure was. I was asleep by 9.
Yeah. Ryan knows all the good food places in Pittsburgh.
I know all the food places pretty much everywhere at this point.
Everywhere you travel.
Everywhere I travel, I found a good place to eat.
It is important when you're on the road.
Very important.
When you're
Listen, something has to remind you of home or provide some sort of level of comfort because sometimes when you're out there, there's nothing else.
What's your go-to when you're on the road? Like, is there a chain that's
Applebee's
in your territory that Applebee's?
So
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Because I remember what mine was. So I'm curious if you.
So I do like Piata a lot.
Okay.
But like you don't find those everywhere.
True.
So I probably my top 3 that I go to frequently on the road is going to be like Piata. I'm a huge Raising Cane's nut.
All right.
And then Chipotle still holds in there.
Does it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Although it is the most inconsistent chain that I've ever been to.
Absolutely.
Like
my go-to was Bob Evans steak and eggs.
I do Bob Evans a lot. I do Bob Evans.
Are you guys smoking this year's 8th Street or last year's?
Last year's.
Okay, perfect.
Is there? I didn't know there's a difference.
There's a
Just
new
the
one.
size difference.
This is a 6x.
Yeah, the new one's going to
50.
be a Corona. It's not out yet.
Oh no, this is the 6x50.
Corona.
This is the original.
We had 3 scenes.
Oh shit! Well, we lost Ray. I forgot. You said over under 4. It's got to be. There's got to be a half point in there.
Yeah,
Are you guys
I
ready?
set the lines for the show.
Are you ready?
I'm
That's a
ready.
better question.
Sorry.
What? You gonna sing again?
Yeah.
My gosh, craziness going on right now. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 278, Beyond the BS, part 2 here. We've got Ryan Ponist still in the garage.
Is Beyond the BS the part 2, or is it part 2 of Beyond the BS?
No, it's part 2 is Beyond the BS.
But you can see how that's confusing.
We used to call the after party Beyond the BS too.
Fair. Well, here we are, part 2.
This is the BS part.
Okay. Well,
you guys ruined that.
What's that?
We
You ruined your
Steve's
intro there. Yeah.
You know, it's I'm kind of used to it, as are my closing remarks, my ratings. You know, pretty much
I can't let it
most of my comments. I
can't
just live here. Jonathan Herring's with us as well. What's up, Jonathan?
How's it going, guys?
Going well.
Just been listening. Ryan did a great job. on part
I
one.
did no such thing.
He killed it. He got most of the blends right. Just murdered it.
He did.
What can I say? I've only worked here 2 weeks.
He's the new guy.
F&G.
F&G. Even though Forged has not been around that long. So
It's the Forged new guy. That's what
Oh,
F&G
is
stands
that what
for.
it stands for?
Yeah.
I thought it was fucking new guy.
No,
No, all right. That's what we used to say on the moving trucks.
no, been fucking for years.
All right. All right. A lot of semantics on this show tonight.
Semantics.
All right. So in part 2, if you guys are listening on the audio, you haven't heard this before, you're listening to the live. Hey, Shannon Chapman out there listening.
Shadow.
How we
Was he in
doing?
Montana?
I believe he is.
That's intense.
Part 2, we do a little bit different. We just talk about a topic, basically just kind of bullshit a little bit about something here. But sometimes it gets deep, sometimes it doesn't. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in for part 2. First part, we did go over the Bolivar Gran Republica with Ryan Ponist from Forged Cigars.
That's right.
And we talked about that, the project, about Bolivar in general, and about the cigar as well. We also talked about the Whistle Pig Piggyback 6-year
Whistleback Piggy Pig.
bourbon whiskey, the newer offering from Whistle Pig. So if you guys have not listened to part 1 and you want to listen to that, definitely go ahead and check out part 1. Click back to that. Part 2, the topic tonight is it worth the gamble? Tonight, I don't know what's going to happen by the time you listen to the audio on this, but the Powerball is worth $1 billion. Seriously.
$1 billion.
I'm in a pickle, and she's going to joke about this. We've talked about this before. Is that I forgot to get tickets, so I asked Kristen to get it. There's no legal obligation for her if she wins and has tickets to give anything to me. But I do have a text thread that it's a 55-45. She's going to be 55 because she did the errands tonight. One night I actually videoed her. And I said, Tell me that we will split this in some fashion.
Wow.
Just in case we win.
Wow.
She didn't like it.
No,
No,
of course
not.
not.
She doesn't like me talking about it right now, I'm sure.
Oh,
when she
I'm
listens
sure
back,
we'll see
I'm
a
gonna
little
get a nice
bubble
text.
pop
No,
up.
huh?
I'm sure.
Tonight. So she might find out and then defriend me by the morning, and
Well, if you see her
Move.
walking out with her bags,
she doesn't live here. That's what I'm saying.
you see her walking out with bags of your stuff.
She won't need my stuff at that point.
At that point,
She
it's
has
just
stuff
spite.
here,
It's just
but
spite
she
at that
doesn't
point.
need it. Yeah,
It's
right.
just spite
Exactly.
at that point.
It's
I've
just
always heard
key on my
possession is
front
five
door
and a
step.
half-
Like, seriously, like you could have just kept it.
She just bought this house, actually.
God damn it, it's not even for sale.
I've always heard possession is 5.5 tenths of the law. So you're good.
No, but that's kind of what I brought this up for me is, this is something that it's always fun to think about what you would do if you won, if you buy a ticket. And I think a ticket's $2 for Mega Million, or for Powerball is $2.
Well, $3 if you want the multiplier.
If you want the multiplier.
If you got to get the money.
Do you have to get the multiplier
Yeah.
to get it, or
Yeah.
does it multiply if you have something else?
No, I think you have to have the multiplier to get it.
I think the Powerball, you just have to have the numbers. But if you're the multiplier, I think it's.
Quit looking at me, Ryan. I don't play the
I
lottery.
think it's, and that's another statement
Let me
about
put it
people don't play the lottery.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe your money's not what you think it is.
Once the lottery sum gets up over 200, it's about 240 million because that's the odds of winning. It actually becomes a good financial move to play the lottery because your pot odds, if you're a poker player, your pot odds are actually good over 1 in 240 million. So once it gets to 500 million up to $1 billion, it's actually not a bad not a bad bet to make.
It's one of those bets again for $2-3. At the very most, $2 to $3 to win that. I mean, Nate, you're not a gambler.
No.
Would you ever buy a lottery ticket?
I probably would, but I know going into it, yeah, I'm gonna lose. But
have
it's like,
you ever bought a lottery ticket?
I've done like pick 3 and pick 4,
Sure.
Younger, but yeah.
But like $1 billion, you didn't get a lottery ticket.
No,
So you'll probably never get another lottery ticket.
probably not.
Yeah,
Because
Your chances of winning are
Yeah,
zero.
I got one in the car right now.
You got one for the Powerball?
Yeah, 100%. And the Mega Millions, just in case.
That's up there too right now, like 600.
Yeah, they're
or something
both
like
up
that.
there, yeah.
some interesting studies done about people that do buy lottery tickets and like socioeconomic stuff that was done. And yeah,
No, I believe that.
It's a
University of Texas did a really good study on it.
Do
So-
you want to share the results, or
well,
it's
like,
like that
Just
was
out
it?
there. Just enjoy it.
Check it out, University of Texas.
So I think it was like people that made less than 20 grand a year spent like $140 a month on
Jeez.
lottery tickets. People that made over 40 grand spent like $40 a month on lottery tickets.
I can tell.
And then they also broke it down by education level. Like people with high school education or less bought lottery tickets like 3 times as much as those with college degrees. And if you look at the areas that purchase the most lottery tickets, it's always the poorest areas.
What about old people?
They do it because they're bored. Sean, what do you got?
Back in the day, there was a guy, I forget his name. He's down in either Clark, no, it was Lewisburg, West Virginia. He won the lottery years ago, and we used to fly into Atlantic City every week. And he ended up pissing his money away. But in the process of all that happened, it was kind of, he wasn't well off, and neither was his family at the beginning. I think his daughter was murdered over.
Well, there's a lottery curse for sure.
Yeah, and his daughter was murdered. Another one OD'd, and like he ended up losing all within a few years. But it was like, I remember we would fly him every week
That's
to Atlantic
crazy.
City, and he just piss it away.
Piss
And
it
eventually,
away.
he stopped asking to fly there because he ran out of money. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, the kind of person you are with $100, you're the same kind of person with $100 million. Like the social characteristics of how you are, the personality traits. Like if you're a dick with $100, you're going to be a dick with $100 million.
So Ryan, we all know where he would be.
That's right.
We would never see Ryan again.
I used to make that
guarantee
joke.
that.
I used to
So-
make that joke. Yeah.
So it's actually funny that you say that because I live above a cigar shop, and all the old guys in there, every time it gets real high, they all have these lottery pools where they're all thrown in, and everybody's agreeing to split it and all that stuff. And they always ask me to play, and I live in Pennsylvania. And I always tell them, no, thanks, I'm not interested. They're like, you're not going to play? You're not going to play? And I was like, listen, when it gets this high, I only play the lottery in Ohio. Because in Ohio, you don't have to disclose who you are when you play this round.
That's right. That's right.
And someday the rent's going to be late and you guys are going to go up there and there's just going to be these dark lines where my stuff used to be.
Why
And
would
you'll
you
like you'll
close the
never see me
lease?
again. No, I'll just leave like a bag of money somewhere. Right here, thanks.
At the
Aha, you
one-off.
figured it out.
Gone.
Like, yep. This will cover
So
it.
I've always said if I win the lottery, I have this friend in college that's a lawyer, and he's like the most no guy I've ever met in my life. He's like the kind of guy that tells you like, just don't do that. And he would be the first guy I would put on my payroll. Everything would have to go through him. I'd pay him $250,000 a year, whatever he needed. It would all go through him. I would want to go buy a yacht or go do something ridiculous, and he would just tell me no. And you got to have that no guy in your life.
A money
I think.
manager.
So
Accountant.
No, I think it's more important just a no guy. The guy that's like,
Yeah.
you're an idiot. Don't do that.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like actually they've done like psychological studies on people, and basically if anybody out there listening to this wins the lottery, the one thing I can tell you to do is go immediately find a financial advisor.
Yep.
Because like
And not one that you just look up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like-
and especially one that finds you. Like, don't do that either. But like the biggest thing out there about anybody that comes into this large amount of money is like human beings are naturally not good at understanding large numbers.
Yeah.
So like you think it's a lot of money, but it's amazing how quickly you go through that much money.
Yeah, ask Mike Tyson or MC Hammer.
100%.
I feel like a lot of people like with that, and obviously we can talk more about just other aspects of life, but with this part of it, if you were given a check for, I think it's like just shy of $600 million, right? If you won the Powerball, everyone's like, what would you do tomorrow? I'm like, I would start having to research. I'd spend like probably a month trying to figure out how I can manage this money, because obviously like the FDIC is $100,000 in a bank is guaranteed. So it's not like you're like, oh, I'll just go to my bank and put it in, or I start spending. It's like you can't touch it even. You know what I mean? Like you literally can't. Like it's not like you have a check and you're like, oh, I'm like day one, $100,000, or I'd pay off my house. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. They don't just like give you a bag of cash that then you just go pay shit off or go buy a Ferrari. It's like you really have to like learn what to fucking do with this.
Like I have a friend, I'm not going to say their name. They recently came into $72.5 million.
Well,
Prowling
Very specific. That took me longer than I wanted.
I got it immediately. I got it immediately.
Prowling Dubin.
Yeah, thanks for name dropping there, Jonathan. Jesus.
But yeah, financial advisor. So
If
I won the lottery,
those with
he did. If I won the lottery, the one thing I always wanted to do when I was a kid is if you buy enough property, you have to like basically instill your own like sort of like government. So I wanted to go to New Zealand and buy a lot of property, and I wanted to become a lord, and I wanted to build a castle. And then what I was going to do is I was going to go back to the United States, a new one.
Oh, a new castle.
I would then go back to the States and I would find homeless people and I would bring them there. And then once a year we would have a fight. And those that won on one team
buying peasants or
but the ones that won, they would become knights.
Yes.
And they would live great for a year, and then we'd go find new homeless people. And then we'd see if they could match them out.
It's
the feast
to your
or famine
point,
choice.
Jonathan. We know what kind of person Ryan.
So that's when you need a no guy.
Now that I'm older, though, my tastes have leveled off. I don't want to do that anymore.
Okay,
and this is funny because as recently as like a week ago, when I didn't even realize the Powerball was getting up this high, this like I think about this a lot. I would get the best insurance and the shittiest car, and I would just give everyone instant karma that is asking for it on the road.
Someone doesn't use their signal, gone.
No, not even that. Just
You're
like
on
a
your
guy
cell phone
laying
at a
on their horn
stoplight.
because, like, I'm sorry, I was looking at TikTok on my phone. Like, I'm probably gonna brake check you at like 70 miles an
Or
hour.
you're at a stoplight
Yeah.
and they're sitting there, it turns green. You know they're on their phone. You just
Bingo.
bumper.
So you're worth 600 million, and you're going to endanger your life.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
Hell yeah.
Use a seatbelt.
Like I would probably never drive again.
I
No.
never drive again.
Oh no, this would be the way I did it.
Jonathan,
And
was
I'd
the
literally
chauffeur
just keep
around.
the money to pay out settlements. Just like I don't give a fuck that you're a lifelong cripple now. Like it was worth it. Like how about that?
Jeez.
The value of these past two, when you're younger versus now, the value put on human life and humans in
Actually
general.
got worse, if you can imagine. Even though it became more fiscally responsible, it got worse, like realistically.
I did not
No,
expect this at all.
I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do with that much money. And that's why I would need a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Because I could make it like if I won $1 billion, that would last me 7 to 10 weekends. like that it would be. We would live some life. I'll tell you that. We would live some life.
Ryan's just gonna go through bottle after bottle of Louis the 13th. Or
How much does Las Vegas cost?
That would be the hard part to me. That would be the hard part to me is like moderating your lifestyle. I mean, when nothing is off limits, you know, what what do you do? And that would be the hard part to me is I would have to have some people around me that are like, no, you got to get up and exercise. You got to eat right. Like if you're going to do this, you got to do this. And that would be tough, man. And I don't even like envy those people because you see these guys, these like dorks like Bill Gates and Elon Musk that are worth,
Dorks.
worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And you see them, they're getting into like jujitsu and they're trying all these different things out. I think they get to that point where they're like, okay, everything's open to me, but I also want to live long and enjoy this. And I think it's got to be a really tough balance to find.
I mean, I think Jeff Bezos found it. I saw some pictures of the chick he had on his yacht. He figured it out.
Oh, I mean,
I
think you do keep some of it. If I had that kind of money, I mean, the first thing would be obviously financial advisor, figure out what to do. And then I'd be like going to my doctor and be like, all right, so how do I live forever? You know what I mean? Like, what do I need to do? I don't need to worry about fucking insurance companies anymore. Like how do I maintain the good weight? Like, what do I need to do? Like exercise wise, food, supplements, like what kind of drugs can I pump into me that we know work to like make me live as to like my peak as long as I can be at my peak. Like look at Jeff Bezos before the money and look at him now. Like he's fucking jacked, right?
Well,
like he's like got the same doctor probably as like Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, like the Hollywood doctor that makes these people like look and live for like they look great into their 70s and 80s if they make, you know what I mean? Like that's what he did. Where other guys, that didn't do that, like Elon Musk and stuff like that, these billion, like they don't look like that. Like health.
The funny thing about winning like $1 billion, even after all the taxes and all that kind of stuff, like the interesting part is you could meet with a financial advisor and probably get to a point where like even if you blew everything, heroin and pappies will give you the same rush as jiu-jitsu. Well,
short term. Yeah,
short term.
It's a great comment.
I can't even recover from that. That was pretty good, actually. That was pretty good, actually. No, like if you met with a financial advisor, the sad part is you could actually put money aside and actually live probably better than you do now.
Just off the interest.
Yeah. Oh, and you can still go out and have like a cool $500 million, just do dumb shit forever.
Dude, that's easily like 600 million's $600,000 salary pretty easily.
Bingo.
$300,000 to $600,000 a year on the interest. It's a real good life.
I don't know what we're all doing, but you right there and all of us in this garage, you would live better than all of us together. Like probably. Yeah. I don't know what everybody's doing in here, but probably.
Well, I make $400,000 a year, so it'd be
better.
It would be a little bit
more
better.
than, wouldn't it?
You definitely got me pegged.
No, I think that's I guess the whole point. It's fun to think about that stuff, right? You bought lottery tickets, Ryan, right?
Sure.
Did you, Jonathan?
I don't even know if it's in Texas. If like that's part
that's true. I guess it is not all the states.
But the answer is no, I didn't. But I probably would. Like I said, if it gets over 240, it's a pot odds thing. I'm a poker player. I'm good with that.
It's just funny to me because like for me, like I not sweating it. You know what I mean? But like I meant to grab a Powerball ticket when I went to because Kroger sells it, right? So I was like, I should do it, and I totally forgot. I actually called Nate. They had Buffalo Trace, I'm like, hey, do you want to get this Buffalo Trace or whatever? And I walk out and then I get home. I'm like, fuck, I forgot to get it. So I texted Kristen and I'm like, hey, if you're still out running around later, like you want to grab some Powerball tickets or whatever. And she ended up doing it. If I didn't buy them, she didn't buy them and someone won tonight, there's still a part of me. I'm like,
that could have been me.
Do you think she's going to Grandpa Joe you?
What does that mean?
Like, do you think she like, you were like, hey, you want to pick up like 5 Powerball tickets? Do you think she like bought a 6th one? And she has that one. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't think that. And she did send me a picture of the Powerball ticket. So maybe she did.
Maybe.
I don't think she did. I think we're at a good point.
You would know if she ended up winning and it was a ticket, not one of those pictures.
Sold at a Westerville Kroger. Wait a second. Why is she not answering my text? No, I think it's that what if factor, right? With
chocolate factor.
You build a chocolate factory.
I would be Willy Wonka. That would be pretty awesome, actually.
Just get to murder kids.
What if I just
all the
became
time?
the real life Willy Wonka?
That would be the problem in like my relationships. My wife would want to keep working in a federal prison every day. And I'd be like, I'm going to enjoy this and have a good time.
That would be a terrible idea, because if any inmate learned that, they would like basically put you in a hostage situation like every other weekend.
100%.
Like,
I'd probably get in trouble for
like
winning
down
it with
like
my wife.
the, whatever.
Yeah,
cartels or whatever.
but then Jonathan could just hire the Navy SEALs to take out the hostage takers.
Just hire Navy SEAls.
Navy SEAls.
All right,
For
how
the
about
right
former
price, I
Navy
think you
SEALs?
can hire almost anyone.
Yeah,
True.
France tried.
No,
it once.
it's funny. I always used to joke that like if I won, Mega Millions or whatever, like Jess and I would go to like South Dakota or Montana, buy a big ranch and just live there. Jess would have whatever horses she wanted, and just live out there and live a quiet life. And there was a customer one time that came into the tinderbox, and he and I were talking, and he was an anesthesiologist, so he's already making good money.
Sure.
Is that a bug scientist?
No,
Yeah,
anesthesia. Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah. Jesus. And I joked, I was like, he said that he was originally from Montana. And I was like, oh yeah, I always used to tell people if I ever won Mega Millions, I would just move to Montana, buy a bunch of land. He shows me a picture on his phone, and in the foreground is his two kids. And in the background, just miles away, is this mountain ridge. And he goes, my dad owns from where we're standing all the way to that mountain and owns 300 head of cattle. When he decides to retire from the family business, I'm going to leave being a doctor and I'm going to take over the family business. I'm like, well, holy shit. Like, like this guy's retirement plan is a dream for some people.
Yeah, but he's also still going to be working.
Well, yeah. Well, at that point, you can just pay people to run the ranch. You just own it.
Good. You're running a business. Do you want to do that?
Probably not.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want
Who knows? I'm
Maybe.
may open the first cigar
pump
shop
up.
in that area within 100 miles and just I'm just going to go own a cigar shop, and we may not have any customers, but I'm going to smoke cigars all day long.
I would love it if you went to where Arnold Schwarzenegger lives and you started the first annual Steve Crane pump off.
All right. I hate it when you call it that. That's so weird.
It's a pump off.
No, it's not.
It's a bunch of guys getting together to pump off. So you can out pump the other. I don't. That's what you do, right?
You gotta do the over here to pump you off.
Right.
No,
See?
not pump
yeah,
off.
Yeah.
No,
pump
it's
you out,
not.
yeah.
What? No.
I'm here to pump you off.
See?
Why are we saying all? No.
That's what they call it, Steve. It's an industry term.
Is it?
Yeah.
What industry?
The
pumping
fitness.
The porn
Pumping.
industry.
Fluffer industry.
Oh God. Oh my God. All right, so I'm gonna try to steer this.
Hear that back?
Yep.
Good.
Aaron Gardner pump off. Jesus Christ.
Steve Crane, first annual pump off.
Oh my God. No, I'm not. Nate, what do you want to talk about?
All right, let's get off the lottery side of it.
Yeah. Let's move on to the we talked about
Just-
the lottery.
No, just in more general in life. I think that's what
The
we're.
gamble.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
what we're talking
Thank
about
you.
before the show.
Even though this was fun.
With
This
yeah,
was
that was
fun.
that was a lighthearted intro.
It was worth a gamble.
You knew it was a gamble having me on. So this is what
Absolutely.
you get.
I think there's a lot of choices that we make in life that, especially major life choices such as going to where to go to school, careers,
And
jobs, stuff
would
like
be
that.
a podcast if my mom didn't chime in at some point. Sorry.
No,
You're absolutely right. Nate.
but no, I
Yeah.
But no, I think there's a lot of life choices and decisions that we make that are major choices, and for some people, those choices, one person's minor choices might be someone else's major choices. But I think a couple that we all experience is like either relationships or careers. Like there's a lot of gamble with that, picking a spouse or a significant other. Like that's a huge gamble.
Well, you say picking a spouse or picking a job or whatever. I mean, like that's not as easy. I think it's oversimplifying it because you're absolutely right, though. I mean, I think it is something that it is. I'm not saying like for a job or applying to a school or talking to a girl. You know what I mean? Like actually,
I'm not saying picking like you can just go out and pick whatever the hell you
I'm
want.
Just trying to expand on that a little bit. I mean, those are the gambles.
Well, but like if you go through the initial step of meeting someone and dating someone, the act of proposing and getting married to that person, that is a huge decision. And look at statistics. Some of them work out, some don't. So it's a gamble on that. Same thing with career. Making a career change can be a huge gamble. I think all of us have kind of gone through that throughout our, probably the last decade. We've all gone through that at least once.
Last 6 months,
Last 6 months.
Yeah.
It was weird when my buddy that I didn't name earlier got $72.5 million. I started having some problems. No, but
does that trickle down economics there?
Doesn't really kind of work like that.
No.
But like
I've carry a little bit.
Sure. No, I mean like to what Nate's saying, absolutely. Like when the news broke out officially, when the news broke out officially, fun fact, I was on a plane. So when I landed and put my phone off, it took 10% battery off and basically rang for about 20 minutes.
So you weren't at TP where
I did. I actually flew down to TP. I went down there just to sort of hang out because I do love Vegas, and it was TP is always a great excuse for me to go down there because sometimes I've worked it like with AB in the past. This year I didn't work it. I actually went down as vacation, which that was the most memorable vacation I've ever had. But yeah, I mean it to your point, like it is kind of interesting, like when everything started coming through and I'm reading the text and then I'm starting to look at different links being sent to me and all this kind of stuff, like it was very strange because there was I did some of my best work probably under pressure.
Yeah. And
that was one of those things where I didn't flinch, and it was just sort of like, well, all I know is things are going to be different. What that looks like, I don't know. But, I'm just going to basically bet on the fact that I'm going to be fine. That's it. I don't know what fine looks like, but I'm going to be fine. Where this is just another.
And I'll say, like, Ryan, from my perspective, like, as soon as it happened, I mean, my first thought was you as well. And that would be really damn good for our company if we could get Ryan on. And
I appreciate that a lot.
And it was like a reach out. Like, I reached out to Steve probably that day or the day after.
You did, yeah. No, yeah.
And reached out to my bosses and so I saw it as like an opportunity. It was like, there's some really great guys on that team that we need to be successful if we're going to make this transition work. And you were the first guy I thought of because, like, there's not many reps in the industry, in my opinion, that have that kind of relationship with their customers that you have. And I saw that the couple years I was up there. And I think when these big moments happen, what's so cool about the people that are doing their job every day and that have done the legwork and done the groundwork, when these big transitions happen and when these big scary moments happen, when you've done that legwork, you get to feel pretty comfortable in who you are and what you're doing.
Well, I think that's what I heard also, what Ryan just said, is that to go off the gambling, you bet on yourself there. I mean, because you did put in the legwork like you're talking about. And it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I knew I wasn't the only person, clearly, that reached out to you, right?
But yeah, no, I mean, definitely.
What's interesting is that you did actually. I don't think it was that night. It was
the next day, I think.
Next day,
because I think I told you, like, you were one of the few people I actually responded to, basically, because of.
And it was a Friday night because I was over at Kristen's place. We were having dinner, and when you called back, I kind of showed her the phone. I was like, I got to take this call. You know what I mean? And then you and I spoke for 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And yeah, it was something that you did. You I don't know. I don't know. I just know that I'm going to be fine. I'm going to play this out. I'm going to see where it goes 100%. And all that stuff. Yeah. But I also remember that you fast forward to even, you know, the 10 event in March. It was like you were still kind of rolling through it. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep rolling through this, but it's like, there was another, and I won't go into specifics, but it was one of those things that at that crossroads, sometimes, there was someone else that reached out to me about a potential job in the industry. And this is something I think can apply for a lot of people in their careers. And you were immediately the first person I thought about, because it was during this whole period of time where I'm like, I know he said he was going to go through this, but it's like nothing's solid yet. And so I reached out to that person. I said, have you thought about Ryan Ponist? This is another company in the industry. And oh my God, yeah, I love him. You know what I mean? And like, this person was just like, absolutely, I'm going to reach out to that person. I hadn't thought of him yet, because I know it was like everything was so fresh at that point. And then you had to look at that as like, all right, so what is the play? And I think that is it worth a gamble type thing, where it's like, all right, do I go to something that's a new opportunity, or do I roll with this? It's a little more secure, but you don't even know what that looks like. I mean, shit, man, you had all sorts of bets on the table that people were like, I'm not saying maybe you did have more than that, but
sure.
From my vantage point, it was like you had someone that was interested in you, and it's like, all right, that's a gamble career wise. Where do I see myself in a year to 5 years? Stay with this. If I get offered this, where would I see myself in a year to 5 years? And it's like, you want to do the right thing. And a lot of us, and I think Ryan, I'm not going to speak for you, and you can comment on this, is that you want to do the right thing that got you to that point. Like, what's the honest thing to do? What's the loyal thing to do? But at the same time, take care of yourself. And I think a lot of times people put themselves in that position that they're trying to do the right thing for other factors in what's right. So what do people see? Like, what are they seeing if I take this move or this move? And then it's like, well, what do you like? You put yourself last a lot of times.
Sure.
Not you personally, Ryan, but I think people put themselves last in those situations. And that's those gambles, right? It's like, how much are you willing to put down to see how it plays out?
No, and I think you're absolutely right on that. And you know, for me, it's always one of those things where I do believe that mentality is one of the biggest assets that you can have, and also can wreak the most havoc if you're not using a good one, obviously. But you know, it was that idea that, like, hey, you know, I'll never forget the moments, like I said, at the airport, just spending time and just carefully, like, reading through what everybody had sent me, even though it was all very, obviously there was a lot of repetition, you know, not to take away from anybody that reached out and said anything nice, but there was a lot of repetition, obviously, with what was being said. And it was that sort of, let's just take a minute. We're going to read through all this. I put my phone in my pocket and I just, like, looked out at the airport through the window. And it was just that sort of collecting your thoughts sort of moment. And it was like, well, let's just see, because in this industry, and I'm sure it's probably like that in a lot of industries, it's not just the cigar industry, but very rarely does a book get to just sort of have an end. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, well, the Alec Bradley years or regime or whatever you want to call it is sort of just come to a finality. Like, sure, you could say we carried on with Forged and all that, but, like, you know, there is a change in that sort of environment. I mean, Herring is a much bigger part of my life now, obviously, like being on the team, and that's cool. And, and we do the AB stuff together now, which is great, but it's still not what that was at that time. And that finality was just sort of one of those things where I was like, okay, rarely do you get this opportunity where something ends and it didn't end in a fucking train wreck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it ended in a positive way. And now I get this opportunity where I could try something different, or I could, you know, wear a different hat or fly a different flag or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it was that idea of just betting on, like you said, for the sake of the conversation, like betting on, it wasn't so much me, it was just betting on, okay, I believe I did my job very well in the last 8 years, and that people saw that.
Yeah.
And because I did that, I'm going to be fine. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know where it's going to be, but I'm going to be fine. You know, and I told everybody, I don't know who I'm going to work for. I don't know what. I don't think I'm going to miss a day of work. That's where I'm going to be, you know, and it's going to work out fine, you know?
Yeah.
That actually reminds me of something I actually heard today. A person was talking about investing. And they said, before you ever invest in the S&P 500, invest in the S&Me 500. Invest in yourself.
Oh, boy, I gotta take a drink of that.
Take care of yourself, because then when change is thrust upon you, because you've taken care of you, you're in a better position to handle and adapt to that change.
Sure. 100%.
Well, I think that's just what I've learned. I mean, through the corporate world, it's like if you're taking care of what you're supposed to be taking care of, it's generally going to work out. And when we had the South Bradley transition, I mean, we lost some reps on the Forged side. We gained some reps on the Alec Bradley side. Luckily, I didn't have an Alec Bradley rep in my area, so there was no direct competition. But, at the end of the day, it's like you've done your part, and you can feel really good about the part you've done. And then, and that you're going to be okay. And I think that's the key to all of it. If we win $1 billion in the lottery tomorrow or whatever, the kind of the footprint you set for yourself matters. What you've done in the past matters.
Well, and to Nate's point, I'm a very firm believer, and there's a few mantras that I sort of live by, and like one of my biggest things has always been like, I will always be there for my friends and anything I can do to help them. Trying to take care of people as best as I can, even if it's strangers, sometimes do it for them. But, a lot of times, sometimes the way I see it is the best sort of care you can do for others is just taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that nobody has to worry about taking care of you. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why when you get on an airplane, they tell you when the oxygen masks fall down, you put them on yourself first.
How many times have we talked about that?
Like 100%. That's a real thing. And there's a reason for that, because if you don't do that, you're now just another person that needs help on that plane. And that's not helping anybody next to you,
And how much does that work in relationships?
Sure.
In a relationship, if you've got your shit together and you're confident in yourself and you're happy with yourself, the relationship inevitably goes better. If you're seeking out, that person beside you to be your life mask or your gas mask or whatever it is, I don't know, oxygen mask, then they're going to get tired of being that person that has to help you out all the time. And so it just goes into like having your shit together goes a long ways in every facet of life.
Well, and we've talked about it before where, and there have been other applications in which, I've said this where if you take care of yourself, your inner circle and the things around you, that then allows you to be in a position to take care of the secondary and tertiary circles around you. If you sit there and you don't take care of you and yours and try and focus on all those tertiary issues or people in your life, there's not enough energy or money or whatever to be able to take care of yourself. Well, if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others?
Sure.
It starts with you. You have to start within and then work out into bigger circles.
Yeah, going back to this, the gambling part of it is that when is gambling the most fun? Obviously, when you're winning, right? But when is it absolutely just? When can it be crushing or just ruling you? Is when you are going beyond your means, right? When you're putting that down, hoping for the big win. What Nate was saying earlier about the certain income levels and stuff like that. It makes sense to a point that there is the grass is greener type mentality. It's like if only mentality and all that stuff. And I tie that into what Jonathan's saying is that, with relationships, like when you're trying to say you're single, or if you guys can remember back, for those listening, if you're single now, it's like, it's it's you got to make sure your house is in check, right? So you got to find out who you are, make sure. And this is a very direct, in my opinion, metaphor parallel to that. You guys were out in Vegas for your trade shows, like you go out there with a budget, right? If you're going to Vegas, if you're just like you like to think so. Sometimes you go to the bank machine, one more time, and it's like, all right, whatever. As long as you're not that person putting your mortgage on the line, you're not putting, you're not saying, all right, how much can you loan me for this? Like that's where it really gets dangerous. Same thing is that when you're in that dating aspect, it's like if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you want out of your side of things, and you're just looking for, I think Jonathan, you were kind of commenting on that. It's like you just want them to be your purpose, right? You want to be with someone, so it's like, all right, I'm attracted to this person, or it even gets beyond that. It's like it's just someone is willing to talk to me. It's like you ask them what they like, you ask all this stuff, and all of a sudden that becomes you for that time. You just want to be that person. It's like, oh, I like hiking. I've never been hiking in my life. I like hiking too. Where do you want to go? You know what I mean? And it's like all of a sudden you try to do all this stuff for that person. It's like if that happens to start working out, then all of a sudden it's like you realize most of the time, I'd say all the time, that's not who you actually are. It's the same thing with like a job interview. You try to put your best self forward, and it's like they're just like, we need someone that is as I don't know, great on spreadsheets, great on this, great on, time management. It's like, I've never been good at any of that stuff. You're like, yeah, no, absolutely. And then you get hired in. It's like same thing. It's like you go on a second date, you go on a fourth date, all this stuff. And it's all of a sudden, it's like, that's not who you are. You can't just switch it around, because if you go into it, I'm not saying be selfish with it, but if you know what your strengths, your weaknesses are, what your interests are, what you want to do, now all of a sudden it's like you can find someone, you can be the person that says, that person's not for me. That job's not for me. In that circumstance with you, Ryan, it's the same thing. You went into this, you're like, all right, I'm going to give myself a fair shake. I believe in what I've done, what I'm doing. Say you got hired in with Forged, you get hired in with another company, and you take that gamble and you're like, this is miserable. This is not what I enjoy.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you're back in that kind of trap of like, this is not what I want. Same thing with the relationship, Jonathan, what you're kind of introducing there. It's like, you say you want this because you just want so bad to be in a relationship. You want so bad to have a job in a certain career. And you're just like, I want that next job. It's like you figure out eventually, or they'll figure it out for you, is that that's not you. That's not who you are. You can tweak who you are. You can add to it. You can grow your strengths. You can work on your weaknesses. But you are a certain type of person. And I'm not one to say that no one can change. You can work on your work ethic. You can work on, your relationship skills and all that stuff. But eventually, if you are still that core person and you're matched up to a person that you're, say, dating or trying to, get married to, and you've lived that, in a sense, lie, even though it's not really a lie, but you're just kind of, you're pushing that, you're going to fail because that's not you. You're not making yourself happy because you didn't even realize, or you ignored what makes you happy.
So I think that makes a great point, because like for me in the cigar world is I came from like the super boutique company. That's what I started in, with Caldwell and Mombacho and 724 and Southern Draw. And that's what I started in. And that's where I felt really comfortable going into a store, introducing a brand and doing that. And I get into the corporate world of general, and it was a very different world. And just like Ryan came in from Alec Bradley, which was a family brand, he's coming into this corporate world. The cool thing that I found with my company is like we've acquired a lot of small brands. We've acquired Room 101. We've acquired Alec Bradley, small relative. I'm saying that. No disrespect to those brands.
Small brands.
Yeah. Yes. And so I still get to live out that thing that I love to do. I love to introduce Room 101. I love to introduce Alec Bradley. So I'm able to, like, at a core, that's who I am. I'm a small family company guy. And I've still been able to live that out. And Ryan, I'm interested to hear kind of, your experience coming in. Like you go from a family brand and you're going into this corporate world. Like, how do you meld the two? And what's that been like so far in this first couple of months?
Well, I mean, Now I'm being interviewed. No. It at the end of the day, like there's certain aspects that are kind of the same, and there's certain aspects that are very different. The corporate, the biggest change between like a small company to corporate was really this idea of like, I know everyone in the process.
Sure.
At Alec Bradley, whereas at General, I know no one in the process, so to speak.
Right.
I do know some people, but it seems like every day I meet somebody new that handles a very critical aspect of my job that I didn't know existed literally the day before. So there's a different feel to that, in the sense that
I got that.
And I have a problem. I can just make one phone call at Alec Bradley, and I'm like, this is this person's skill set. This is what they do on a daily basis. This is what we can get done. And I sort of know the system, versus going to General, where it's like, you're learning all the people involved in the process, and then you're learning the layers of it, the nuance to it, and then on top of that, trying to learn the processes yourself. It's all different. So like that's probably the biggest differences in that regard. And that's kind of the whole. I commented to one of the guys that works at Forged, Matt Davenport, and he was asking me about differences, and that was like the one thing I told him, which was like the one thing that I thought was really interesting, and it's just a small detail, is like our job title, you and I, we're called account representatives. Yeah. And I said, that is probably the most fitting title in this industry. I said, because really at the end of the day, as much as you could say we're a territory manager or we're a sales rep or something like that, we actually are account representatives. It is us going into the stores and meeting with people like Steve and Brian at the Tinderbox, and sort of getting their needs and understanding the company's agenda and trying to get those two things to match. Oh, yeah. And it's just a matter of, for me, kind of figuring out what that is that we can do on our end, with the new system. And that being said, there's pros and cons to it. It's a new system. Maybe it's a little convoluted at times, but at the end of the day, there's a lot. There's larger resources that are, of course, allocated. So sure. That's a plus to get to. When we get to the solution, everybody will probably be happy. It's just a matter of figuring that all out. So that's what probably the biggest differences are.
I think a lot of times when you get into that corporate or small business, whatever it might be, there's always justification of jobs. Not going to get into the egos as much, but I mean,
sure,
corporate, there is that where there's a justification of your job. So knowing your role, I think that's very, very important. And then it's realizing what other people like you said, resources. So
sure,
there's the other mentality where I think there are a lot of people that will look at it as like, I don't know why I have to report or I have to check in with this person and I have to check in with this person. I have to check in with this person. Even a small business, it's like you still have to know your role in that small business. So maybe there's not 6 people you have to check in with, but there's 1 or 2. You still have to realize
sure.
where you're at the moment in that and make sure that everyone is working together on that. There was a comment on this, and I think we can kind of put it up there from Ray. He did back away and came back, but I do like this comment because I think it's a talking point. We say, how does moving from a job in the cigar industry in America to a job in the cigar industry in America really count as a gamble? And I think, Ryan, if you want to answer that, or I can answer that, but I mean, I can give my viewpoint, but I think you could definitely talk about that personally.
So, I mean, the biggest thing in this particular instance that we're talking about is like the cigar industry is very, very small. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very small community. And I've joked around that you could be really, don't get me wrong, you could probably be really bad at this industry and last a very, very long time, if not build an entire career like that.
Yeah.
So like if you want to succeed and succeed properly, and I'm going to go one step further, which is the biggest thing that maybe we didn't necessarily talk about a little bit. Steve touched on in a moment. Finding happiness, and Alec Bradley was a company that there were amazing things about Alec Bradley, and just like any other company, we had faults. And at the end of the day, it was a small group of tight-knit people, where it was a place where a guy like me, like, I got comfortable, and being comfortable can be a good thing. Don't get me wrong. At times being comfortable can be a bad thing, but
Sure.
There's definitely a lot of bad places I could have landed. And being that I wanted to stay in the industry, that was my goal, but I didn't want to sacrifice necessarily being unhappy for the sake of just being in the industry. Like even something like our territory managers or sales reps or whatever you want to call them industry wide. There are companies where guys cover half the country. There's companies where guys cover 10 states, 7 states. I've at most only ever covered like 2 whole states, 3 whole states, and maybe like 2 partial states. And eventually it got down to 2 whole states and a half a state. Yeah.
Right.
And West Virginia, which will count as a state. I mean, it's a state,
No,
but like
it's
it's kind of like 2 cities, like really.
It's
a state. But like, that aspect of, could I have stayed in the industry and maybe made more money, but had to cover a bunch of states? Would that make me happier than making less money and covering less states? There's just a lot of nuance to it. And it's one of those industries where to do what you want to do and be comfortable, you kind of really have to set your sights on where you want to be and where you want to land. And unfortunately, like in this industry too, in the sake of gambling, with some of the smaller companies, there's a lot of small companies out there that I love. There are small companies that I wouldn't be upset to work with, and that were considered, in that sort of transition period. But there's also a lot of small companies where it's like, this could be a dangerous step to going down a hole where I don't want to be, and have to basically sort of fight my way back up to either get the territory I want, the pay I want, or something like that.
I also think that anytime you stay in a career, like to Ray's question and to what you're saying, is you have to pay your bills, right? So
sure.
there is the other aspect of that. And him being international and where he's lived and everything else. So being in the cigar industry in America to a job in the cigar industry in America, and he did say he's maybe playing a little devil's advocate there, but it's like,
not wrong.
No, I mean, it can be, because it's like you move from one company to another. It's like you could have taken that what I talked about, where like someone else was interested in you to talk about. It's like that would have been a career move. This isn't just cigar industry. It's a career move. Because if say you did take that job, say maybe it was even for more money initially, right? But you have the safety over here. It's like, it is like the happiness that you're talking about, but it's also paying your bills. So if you were able to take that job and then in like 2 years, hey, it's not working out, now you got to look for a new job.
Well, and
do you
another
fall back in the industry, or do you take another huge gamble and go into another industry in sales? So like, what do you want to sell? What do you want to do? Then you factor in age, right? Where you're at in your life, right? If you factor in also, not just talking about Ryan, but other people, it's like if you have kids, a family,
sure,
a house, you have bills to pay, where it's like that is a gamble, because you can put yourself in like, what's going to make me happy? What do I see as a potential better 5 years from now? And all of a sudden, 2 years in that 5-year plan, that fizzles out. Now all of a sudden you're stepping back, but now you're not 30 something. Now you're 40 something. Now you're not 40 something. You're 50 something. It's like all of those moving parts are huge. I think those are all gambles.
And something that really speaks to the topic that we're talking about, that, a little bit behind the curtain of the cigar industry. So like, at Alec Bradley, I work directly for Alec Bradley. Now I work directly for Forged, General, STG, whatever you want to call it, with Jonathan Herring. One of the other options that was brought up to me during this whole period of uncertainty was going to be a broker.
Yeah.
And, being a broker, is where you're not necessarily getting paid a salary, where you're basically eating what you kill. And don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to that, but
You're also owning your own business.
That could definitely also be a very feast or famine type position as well, where, and again, there's a lot of nuance to it where, when you're getting basically like a commission on everything you sell, it's very well possible. And one thing that does happen in this industry, and I'm sure others, you could build a brand up so big that, then they go, hey, we can actually afford to just hire a sales rep directly now. We don't need you anymore. Have a good one, buddy. So all that paycheck that you got just kind of went out the window. And not to mention there's small companies where I've had guys be like, you should work for this company because their product is so good and they're killing it right now. And I agree with them 100%. Maybe they make great product. They have great marketing. They do all these things, but little detail nobody thinks about, they can't make enough product right now. So, can I grow the business? Or can I pay my bills?
Yeah.
If I need to sell 1,000 boxes a month to pay my bills and they can only make 800 and they're great cigars, that doesn't do a ton for me, So there is a lot of nuance to it. And I don't think it's, playing devil's advocate.
I would say to Ray's question is like, it's the same as any other industry. Like, it is a risk. If you're getting offered a big promotion, it's going to be with a smaller company where they're going to have you running things or have you in a management role. And obviously stepping up to that management role requires more risk on your part and on their part.
There's more
and so you step in, you have more money, more responsibility. If it doesn't go well, and that's something as I've been in the industry only 7 years. I go to the trade show every year, and I went to the trade show this year. Several companies reached out to me about, a riskier position. And we're talking about risk tonight. And my company treats me really well, and they've taken care of me for 6-7 years in every way I can imagine. Like if I had a family issue, I had a health issue with my mom at the trade show, and that was not an issue. I had the president of the company reach out immediately and say, "Go home if you need to. It's not a problem." So it's a big corporate company, but in a way, it's a family as well. Like, we've got to know each other. We love each other. We look out for each other, and that means a lot to me. And I think when I get some of these offers, and I might make X amount of dollars more, but the risk is very high, and you gotta weigh the risk and the reward. You gotta weigh what your company's done for you and how they've taken care of you. There's so much nuance into it. And so to answer Ray's question, it's a gamble. It's an absolute gamble.
No, I can relate that to. Go ahead, Nate.
Well, I was going to say, like, in the cigar industry, like, there's a lot of, young guys with smaller boutique brands, and, you talk to them long enough and, they'll say something like, I would love to work for this company. And they always name like one of the big boys in the industry, just because they have a little bit more name recognition. There's maybe product that people seek more often than the brands that they currently represent, but they also don't factor in that, okay, if you go work for one of those bigger companies, there's also more eyes watching you. Things may be a little bit more strict. Like, you're not just, free to go do whatever and make your own schedule. Like, there's more criteria that you have to hit. There's more things that you're responsible for that maybe you don't consider, you don't factor in to want to work for one of those large companies, because they sit there and they're like, if I work for this company, I'll be making this much money. I get a company car. I get this. I get all these benefits. Well, guess what? That company's paying you a lot of money. The more money they pay you, the more they're going to critique you as well.
Nate,
they want to know that you're worth that type of investment.
But Nate, that comes to me when you're looking at it from that way, from smaller company to bigger company and more benefits and everything. Like, to me, that comes like believing in yourself. Like, if you're doing the work every day, you're doing what's required of you, I don't think there's a lot to worry about in that aspect. I think there's more to worry about going from a big company to a small company and getting put in a management role. And if that company can't make the cigars, like Ryan said, or that company has issues financially or whatever they have, like that's where it gets a little scarier to me. Like, I think if you believe in yourself and you know that you're getting out there and you're hitting the doors every day, if you're at a small company and you want to move up to a big company, I think you can be very successful. You just got to swallow a little bit. There's a little bit you might not be, necessarily on board. There might be have to be products that you have to put in that you might not have wanted to, but I think it's a different way of looking at it.
I think from a job standpoint, like what you guys are talking about, yes, there is a part of that where, say, when I first met Ryan, he was brought in by the former Drew Estate rep, former Drew Estate rep. Yeah,
no, it's like former,
and he was repping a cigar company that was, it was his foot in the door, right? So that was the foot in the door, and it was a cigar company. I don't even know if they're around anymore. They're not around anymore. So that was one of those things that was a gamble for him to get into the industry.
Absolutely.
I did the same thing, Steve.
But I'm just saying is that, you saw, I saw him and dude, this is Ryan Ponist coming in with like a fucking trucker hat on, and he had this like bullshit cigars, and it was like whatever, like I'm not saying they were bad, but it was just like the whole mentality behind it, everything behind this cigar company was like what, AKA something,
AKA American Kick-Ass Cigars.
I remember that.
Yeah. So that's how I met Ryan. But
Herring's down in Texas. That's the old Slava ground.
But shout out to Sam Smerkel, who was the former whatever Drew Estate rep.
Right.
And he was great at the time, and he went through his shit, whatever. But like he brought in Ryan to help him out at. You want to introduce him?
Sure.
Promote the company you were working for at the time, and you were a broker, or you were?
I was a broker. Yeah.
Tried it. But he got his foot in the door. Then all of a sudden he became Alec Bradley Ryan. And then this is the Ryan that we know now in the industry. And I go back to the comment of that part, foot in the door. Sometimes it's worth it, right? That was a gamble, right? That was something that you look back now, that was worth working for AKA because it got you to when there was an opportunity, you were able to say, hey, I've been doing this, and they hired you. Then now all of a sudden, when this shit happened with Alec Bradley to STG, now all of a sudden it's like you're worth something. You have people that work for the company that are vouching for you. You have people that are on the outskirts, like myself, that are vouching for you. That no one from STG reached out to me, but Jonathan did. And it's like, he's at, what was he doing? Like, it's business development. I was trying to explain it to him, and it was like, there's people pulling for you. I go back to Ray's comment though. It's like, and I know he's a little bit devil's advocate and all that, but when he says, what's the gamble of going from working in the cigar industry in America to working in the cigar industry in America? It's the same thing with your personal life, right? So if a relationship doesn't work out for you, and you're going back in, so from us being guys here, if one relationship didn't work out for you, there's a huge gamble going into a new relationship.
Yeah.
Because you have to make sure it may not work out. You may spend 6 months, you might spend 6 years in a relationship, whatever, but it's like going back to the fact that you have to learn along the way so that foot in the door of your, hopefully at some point, your huge success, that's all from all of those stepping stones that you put yourself out there. You try to learn about yourself. You try to get better at what you do for a job. And then from the career or from the relationship standpoint, you learn about what I was saying earlier. What works for you? What are you looking for? What relationship are you looking for? What job are you looking for? It's like, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's like, oh, I'm going to be a broker rep for AKA Cigars. And then it's like next up and coming or hey, they have great cigars. It's like, you should rep them. Like, I'll do it again. No, you actually went from one step. You learned about yourself. You learned about the industry. You learned about what you wanted to do. And then you had a more better fit.
Sure.
You found yourself in a better fit.
Sure.
not necessarily parallel from relationships to what happened with the Alec
I think it's
Bradley.
pretty damn close.
I mean,
But what's that?
He said it was
I think it's
pretty
pretty damn close.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, this is one big thing. One big thing in this industry is
that's one of our podcast drinking rules.
Oh, which rule is it?
End of the day, I think you.
When it's end of the day, you have to drink.
No, anytime someone
I made the rules. I made the rules, so I should know them.
I changed a couple of them.
Okay,
that's good. Thank you. But no, I mean, it's in this industry a lot of the times, like it's. I mean, I shouldn't even say in this industry. In business, I think one of the best pieces of advice is to bet on people. And, you know, I've been very fortunate that, you know, even when, you know what, the pond I was in, AKA betting on me, helped elevate me. And I bet on them to elevate me, and it did. And then,
how old were you at that point?
So let's see. I want to say that would have been
that was 10 years ago.
It would have had to have been around like 26 or something like that. It was a little longer than that. I probably would have been about 26.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just that matter of going, you know, to the topic, like I said, betting on things, you know, betting on people, going up, working up the food chain a little bit. And, you know, now it's like, Alec Bradley was like an awkwardly sized company because there's really not a lot of other companies that size, you know? So, and it doesn't mean I necessarily have to go work for a bigger company. Bless you. It's like I said, it's more or less, for me, it was finding that sweet spot of this is good for my lifestyle. This is a place where I'm comfortable. This is a place where, you know, I enjoy the product. You know, because I when I grew up, in order of things I wanted to be, and I think we've talked about this on the show a long time ago, I wanted to be a comedian, then a lawyer, then I wanted to be a mortician, then I wanted to be a cop, and now I sell cigars. And if you asked me during any step of the way, is there anything that you would never do? And my answer was always, I would never do sales.
Yeah,
because it is
dude,
it is this, it is that. And there was a guy that came in. It's funny that we're having this conversation. About 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in a cigar shop, and this guy came in, was talking about something. He was talking about it. He was going to take this job, but he was like, you know what? I couldn't do the job because it was sales, and I don't want to sell something that somebody doesn't want. And I just kind of like sat there for a minute. I'm like, so just go sell something people want. like you know, like that's why I'm in the cigar business. People like cigars.
That's how I got into
sucker anybody to buy cigars.
That's how I got into my last career. Like I was working retail at Kroger. I was working in the produce department at Kroger, and then applied for a job with AEP, and didn't even realize it. Even like at the time, the person that was in charge of that division, when he would interview people initially in that first year and a half, like during the entire interview process, you didn't even realize you were interviewing for a door-to-door sales position. And so we had a lot of people that would come on board for training, and all of a sudden that first day, they're like, wait, what am I doing? Nah, fuck that. and they wouldn't show up the second day. You know, but it wasn't something I wanted to do, but I looked at it as an opportunity to get into something that would provide better than just, you know, working in the produce department at Kroger.
Sure.
So it was a little bit of a step backwards, but at the time I was like, what it could lead to in a year, 2 years, 5 years could be better than anything I would have gotten in 5 years at Kroger.
Yeah.
Which it turned out to be the case. And then, you know, recently I did the exact same thing again. I left that to do something. The one advantage I have going for me is when I made that change and left, I did it to pursue something that I already thought I could be good at. And, you know, the 2 year, 5 year, whatever outlook is brighter than the 5-year outlook of where I was.
So Nate,
I'd been with that company for 8 years and really hadn't gotten very far in the last 6 or 7 of those years. And I had made a change from one department to another department within the company, thinking that would lead me to a better position or a better role. And I saw the writing on the wall that there was just no way that was going to happen. And so I had to do something. And even though, initially that it, if from someone looking on the outside, it would look like a step back, all the other benefits and things I've gained from that change far outweigh, staying where I was. Sure. And, and this was part of my interview process and, talking about my future with my current employer, like, what does it look like in 6 months? And even the 6-month outlook was better than where I was. And so, yes, it's a risk to go from corporate company to a small family business, but the outlook was far brighter, far greater. And then one of the things I couldn't see, because it's hard to see how happy you're going to be making a change until you actually start doing that.
Yeah,
but
it's a gamble, right?
Yeah,
you're scared of it.
But I learned very early on, like, how much happier I was. Like, even after my first week, I would come home from work and Jess had noticed, like, when I got off work, I was already in a better mood than what I was before. Like, my previous job, I couldn't wait for the day to end. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, well, my shift's over, time to go home. Shit, I'd love to stay here for the last couple hours of the day and be helpful to the team.
Yeah.
But, so, it's one of those where that wasn't something I could foresee, but I'm glad it was, a bonus or benefit that was there waiting.
So Nate, so what you're talking about, like, people always ask me, how did you get in the cigar industry? And it's an interesting question. I never go into the detail.
That's a common question, isn't it?
Yeah. How did you get into it? And so what I tell people is different than kind of the true story. I give them a short version of it. But I was 27 years old with a job at State Farm in claims. It was a very good job. I had ability to move up. And I was a member of a cigar shop, and my buddy sold cigars as a broker. And he said, come join me. You can do this. And he told me when he offered me the job, he said, if you're good, if you're decent at this, after a year, you'll get other offers. So just come work for me for a year. And I worked for him for a year. And I remember, like, month 2, I walk into a shop, and I'm not into sales. I was never into sales, but I just knew, like, okay, this is the job for me. My first year in the cigar industry, I made $12,000. I got paid $1,000 a month for 12 months.
Oof.
And luckily I didn't have any bills. I didn't, I was able to do it. And I was able to do it because, like, month 2, I knew I really love this. Like, this is for me. And so month 12, I got offers, just like he said. I stayed with a small company for a year, got offers. But the point of the story is, like, I was late 20s, when a lot of people are trying to, like, settle down. I was doing a whole new career. I took a fucking bet. And I remember when I talked to my boss at State Farm, I was like, I'm thinking about doing this. She told me, she said, go do it. If you don't love it, you have a job. You can come back. And that was huge for me because I knew, I had a backdrop if I needed it. But after about 2 months, I knew, like, this is the career for me. So when you talk about betting on yourself and the gamble, and when Ray is talking about, like, the gamble of going from an American cigar job to an American cigar job, there's no industry like ours in sales, in my opinion. Like, I could go do what I do selling Marlboro cigarettes in a small region, never have to stay at a hotel, and just, live from home and do that. That's not what I want to do. I love going into a shop. That's my passion. I want to go into a shop. I want to tell the shop about my product. I want them to be interested in it. I want to do an event on that product. But I think I found my thing, and I feel so blessed that this is my thing, and I know it's my thing and the thing I enjoy. And when you talk about risk, it was a huge risk for me to leave a steady paying job at State Farm where I was going to move up in the system and all this. But I took that risk. I made no money, and I was able to double my salary, and move up into a company that took care of me. But I'm just I feel so blessed that and Steve, I know we've talked about this, but I don't get up in the morning ever and don't want to go to work.
Right.
I know you don't believe that, but I really don't experience that, dude. I get up in the morning and I'm happy to go to work. I enjoy my job. And man, if you ask every, 38-year-old guy out there, I would imagine that's about maybe 15% of guys that are 38 years old don't want to go to work every day. Maybe. But I want to go to work every day and I enjoy it. And man, am I blessed.
So I'll say this as we get towards the end of this. For years of my life, everything, I'm not saying it was all forced, right? But it was I was rolling through basically not what I thought was the next step, but that was the way I was ingrained. That's why I went to college, and that's why I was seeking a relationship. I was doing the job thing. I mean, I had a summer job at a moving company, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I kept with that company. They offered me a position, right? So that's what I did. I did that for 10 years. And I had different roles in that company. I kept getting promoted, and there was ups and downs. And if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, it was a small to medium-sized business, and it was throughout my 20s. I also, got married, because that's, and no disrespect for my ex-wife. I mean, we're still good, and we get along, and there's no kids involved, but it's I didn't necessarily know myself like I know myself now.
Oh yeah.
And at the time, all of these steps made sense to me, but there wasn't necessarily me in the driving seat. I was not the person that was doing what I necessarily wanted to do. I was doing what seemed right and
sure. Or what you thought you had to do.
Not necessarily. I get what you're saying. Not necessarily had to do, but it was what I wanted to do because that's what made sense, right? And I had a lot of good experiences with that. But I learned a lot about myself in my career, my personal life, and there were times in that previous career that made sense financially. That made sense because I didn't know what called me to enjoy my job.
Steve, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
When you got divorced, was there a sit down moment with yourself where you were like, who am I? What do I want to do? What do I want out of this life? Because for me, that was the big game changer. When I got divorced, I was like, all right, so now I'm going to do it for me. What do I want?
Not as cut and dry as that. So with the job and with the all my previous relationships, it was more, there was something missing. Mm-hmm. But again, I was not necessarily in driving seat or driver's seat where I know people that definitely they're always pushing, and you can go on the other side of that and in my opinion, the not so great side where it's you're always looking for the next best thing, right? Yeah. So it was right in the middle of that, if you will, where I was happy-ish.
Yeah.
You fast forward when I went through the career, when I went through that marriage, and things were good. especially from the outside looking in, things were good. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted, and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted in life. To Jonathan's point, those things came to an end, I think, because of that a lot of times. So when my marriage ended, I was still trying. I wanted to be in a relationship, so I was still trying to seek that. When my career ended, I was still trying to seek that, and I was trying to find what would make me happy. But it wasn't necessarily a hunger for that. It was more or less, it turned into a survival thing.
Mm-hmm.
It has taken me, and I think that's where it comes. Everyone's got a different path. Everyone's got a different sequence of events, right, to get them to a point. I'm not saying I have everything figured out at this point. I'm 42 years old, but I will say that at this moment, the last 10 and a half years I've worked in the cigar industry, working for someone, Brian at the Tinderbox, it has been good. There's been the ups and downs. It's like, I still remember the time where I went from working in a small business where I dressed up a little bit to wearing at the time, like a polo and jeans. I remember like putting on like tennis shoes to go into work. I didn't know how to handle that. Like, that didn't seem right. That I'm going into work right now. I put jeans on, and I think it was like, I remember this day. It was an Oliva polo that I was given to come in, like, to work. And I was putting on tennis shoes to come in to the shop. It was so foreign to me that now I look back is like, I miss a little bit of like the dressing up and doing that stuff. But that's not what it was about. Mm-hmm. But I was so ingrained in that it was like, this is what you do as you get through your 20s and your 30s. It's like, you keep getting the promotions, you keep getting more money, you keep getting a little bit more responsibility and all that stuff. And then it's all of a sudden, the reality around all that stuff sometimes isn't what you want.
Yeah.
It fits with you. Same thing with the relationship. You know, you go through the steps of a relationship, and it's like, what's the next step? It's like, oh, you get engaged, you get married, you have kids, you get the white picket fence, you do all that stuff. It's like all of these things that were ingrained in me. There was no, I don't want to say there wasn't a gamble, because there was some definite steps there that were a gamble to me. Over the last 10 and a half years has led me to this point now where the job I have, it's like, everyone's like, there are times even in the cigar shop, the customers will come in, right? Saturday night, right? What else do you do? I work here. This is my job. And it's like, usually people with like, you know, people around my age or younger than me that have like the platinum cards, and they're just like, you know, it's like, oh, like they're talking with their buddies about the money and all this shit, like they're buying in the house, and oh yeah, my blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and they're the ones that ask, like, well, so you do this on the side, what else do you do? I was like, no, it's my full-time job. They're like, oh. And there's like that moment there. It's like, at one point it kind of bothered me, and not anymore. It's like, bro, I know that you're probably cheating on your wife, and you're probably doing this. I'm not saying everyone is, but it's like that mentality. It's like, you say you're happy, but all you're doing is waiting for the next big paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, that you can justify yourself as a person, as a man, as a woman, whatever it is. And it's like, I've gotten to the point now that the gambles that I've made more recently have paid off in so many dividends that, you know, my relationship, it's because I made myself first, that I was able to present myself as a 100% person,
as a whole person, dude,
as a whole person. With the job, it's like, yes, I am like you, like Jonathan, you're the cigar guy, you know, Ryan, you're the cigar guy to a lot of people. Like Nate, you're the cigar guy. You're now the cigar and spirits guy at Carfagnas. It's like all of this stuff, like there's identity there, but it's because you're buying in 100%. You've put everything on the line, that it translates to your job. People see that when they come in, when you guys talk to people. You know, my girlfriend, Kristen, I am 100% myself.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
And the bad I try to like obviously work on. The good I try to work on. And it took me probably longer than a lot of people, but I've gotten to the point now that it's like those steps leading up to this is that you walk up to, and this is like the gambling metaphor. If I walk up to the table, I'm not just going to like lay down a stupid bet. I'm going to make a calculated bet. I know what I can spend. I know what I want to put down. And I know that what I can afford for my financial state on a true gamble, like money wise, I also know that what I'm willing to put down on the table for a relationship. And that, in my opinion, has finally at the moment, and hopefully for a long term, will lead to a happy job or career. I like, to your point, Jonathan, I like going into work. I like waking up and knowing what I do. Sometimes I yearn for a little bit more, but I think that's healthy. Same thing with a relationship. I am super happy.
No, I do that with my job.
Forward to the future. I want more. I want to grow what I have. Where in my 20s, I'm not saying it was bad. It was just I didn't have a track of where I want to go.
You were sometimes just happy to be there, and that's
sure.
I went through that, and look, dude. I mean, I have something, and you have something, and Ryan has something, and Nate has something that not a lot of people have. We enjoy going into work every day, and at the end of the day, that's pretty fucking huge.
I play the lottery, going back to the beginning of this, not often, but it is fun to think of what if. But I always joke, even at the cigar shop or even with my girlfriend, it's like, if and we didn't, according to Nate's text, if we won the Powerball.
No one won the big prize. There were some winning tickets.
Still alive.
Yep.
Still alive.
Yep. The $1 billion.
We didn't win the $1 billion, but it's like, even if I did, everyone jokes about it. They don't think it's bullshit. I would try to work, like figure out like how to manage the money and all that stuff. But in the meantime, I would go in and I'd probably text Brian, or I'd tell him in the morning, like, hey man, like between you and me, I won the lottery, but I'm going to still work here because I'm not going to just bail. Everyone jokes about that. Not even jokes. They say it like,
you'll never see me.
I was watching the news before this,
Steve, I think about it all the time. I think I might still do my job for a while. I would do my job.
I would invest money into that shop, or like try to like, hey, let's fuck around and make sure like the BS. Maybe we'll do the BS Cigar Company. We'll do it big time. You know what I mean?
You own the Chipotle next door.
Oh,
I don't want those management problems. I think what I'm getting at here with all this stuff is that you learn from it. You learn from the gambles in the past. You learn from their safe bets sometimes, even more importantly, that they don't always pan out either. And you realize that if you put a little bit down or whatever, and you don't really believe in your bets, that sometimes you don't necessarily get anything out of it. You wish you would have bet a different way or put more into it. And I think that's where I'm at now, at my age.
That's a whole new life. That's a whole new topic.
No, I'm not trying to introduce a new topic. I just really think that, through all of those things I just talked about, is that it's gotten me to this point in my life that I'm not saying anything is guaranteed. I don't think, I believe in my relationship. I believe in my job. I believe in my life more now than I ever have.
Yeah.
And that has given me more security, and things can be taken away from me. You can get that health, taken away from you as well. But I know now more than I ever have that I am living my life voluntarily more than I ever have. And it sucks to think that it wasn't earlier, but again, sometimes it takes people a long time to realize what being in control of what you can control and realizing what you can control really does impact how you live your day-to-day life.
Well, and I think this touches a little bit on what you said and sort of what Nate talked about earlier with like investing in yourself and all those sorts of concepts. But one of the strangest things I'm most proud of about myself is the fact that I have a high school diploma. I'm like, that's it. Never went to college. I did take some classes for a period. I did online schooling, and for one reason or another, I stopped doing it. And, when I look and see like where I'm at, and I think about the decisions I made, like, sort of betting on myself to get here with like I'm not going to go this route. I'm going to go this route. I'm not going to go this route. I'm going to go this route. Like, You know, I had this conversation with my dad around Father's Day, like, you know, with what I've been able to do. And I told him, I was like, you know, I said, Dad, I said, I don't know what sort of, I said, I don't know what plan you had for me. I don't know if there was a plan. I don't know what you expected of me. I was like, but I found this weird niche where, like, somehow,
you're good at it. You're good
somehow
at it. Yeah.
I've turned this into something that makes my life possible. Like not my life, but you know what I mean? Like the lifestyle that I have possible.
Yeah.
And like, that's fucking awesome. And it just went back to like just taking those risks and not doing. And what I'm saying, like what it gets into you is like, you know, talk about your relationships with your ex and stuff. A lot of it was like sort of like what was expected of you versus what you did or what you were doing and how you reevaluated and decided, no, I'm going to do something different. Like it's definitely all been that. It's definitely all been this idea or this mentality of like, we're going to kind of make our own luck a little bit here. And we're just going to do this. And we found something that works and we're just going to keep pushing it and go as far as we can, you know? And I think maybe that's part of like, maybe back to Ray's point, like what is the gamble? Mm-hmm. It's that idea of like, well, I've come this far and like, I don't want to walk away from this. Is like, okay, well, I left this like unchecked. Like, could I go farther? You know? So it's that idea of staying in that pocket and sort of just really seeing the play through and, you know, trying to get to wherever. I don't know where I want to go, but it doesn't matter. I just know that wherever I'm going, I'm enjoying the ride getting there. And
it's
me,
not
what I'll tell you was the groundwork that Ryan's put down, he can go wherever the fuck he wants to go. And that's the beautiful thing. He's done the day-to-day labor. He's done the day-to-day work. And like, he's already thought of huge in our company. And like, that's pretty damn cool. A new guy coming in, and because of what he's done in the past and because of the relationships he's built, he's already there. And he, you know, he's an asset. He's a huge asset to our company.
Thank you, Jonathan.
No, I think that's any company you work for.
BS Cigar Company when you hit the lottery. Woo!
Let's go. Let's go.
Later, Jonathan. No.
Forged 2.
I'll be your
Just
Texas,
kidding.
bro.
Love you guys. Love you guys. BS Cigar Company. Next SCG acquisition.
Yeah.
No less than 72.5. 76, we're in.
We're in. The goal's been set.
What I hear right now, we're at about 600,000, so we got a ways to go.
All right. 600K is not bad. Not bad.
Yeah,
I mean, the cigar industry,
Based on
start
where
a
we're
lot
at,
of cigar
right?
companies.
it's nothing to sneeze at.
We'll figure it out. Let's talk.
By the way, you were right. Not also just to touch on this, but you, when we were having the conversation, you've quietly made a comment to me a couple times here, Steve. The A Street definitely goes way better with the Whistle Pig than the Gran Republica for sure.
I wish we would have
Maybe
we do 30 seconds on the 8th Street.
the A Street. I'll give you more than 30 seconds, and maybe I'll try to highlight it. I tried to learn about how I can do a little bit more of like the snippets of the podcast, you know, for some more social media stuff. But I will say the 8th Street it's a very cool concept, right? So this cigar, I don't know if either of you guys want to highlight on this.
I don't know anything about it. No,
Ryan, you want me to go?
Very limited edition. You don't need to sell it. Get it out of your mind.
No, so
Ryan, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I'll let you get the second half of it.
The Forged new guy has
the idea. So the idea behind the 8th Street was, first off, 8th Street is sort of a hat tip back to the beginning of El Credito when it was in Miami, when that factory was there, and Ernie was doing La Gloria out of it. Another hat tip with that brand was we went to El Titan de Bronze down in Miami, which is a phenomenal cigar factory. And we approached them with 2 projects, one of them being 8th Street. And we basically told them, like, listen, we trust what you guys do. We trust the process. We know your reputation. Make us a La Gloria. And that was basically sort of the idea behind it. That was it. and they produce what we call the 8th Street, and we're going to be coming up on another run of it towards the end of the year, but right now they're still out there. It's a limited edition product. Retails for about $23 again on the shelf, depending on your cigar tax. It might be a little different, but yeah, I think it's a phenomenal cigar. I love El Tito de Bronze. I think they did an excellent job with it, and to me, definitely standing up a lot better with the Whistle Pig. I think
it does. And El Tito de Bronze, this is to my knowledge, is the 3rd project with El Tito de Bronze from STG, right?
Correct.
You guys
We
did
did 2
the
with Forged.
Cohiba M,
Yep,
which was general, but now you're working with this. And when I was trying to study up on this cigar, because I've had one, I thought it was very, very good, and it's one of those balanced cigars, right? It's not overpowering. This is that classic. It sounds so generic, but classic tobacco, like just very, very enjoyable cigars. There's a little bit of complexity, but it's one of those more subdued, very delicate blends, which I think comes out of that factory a lot. But it's always interesting to read the history of La Gloria Cubana, where it wasn't Ernesto Perez Carrillo that we know now. It was his dad.
correct.
And he started the El Credito factory on 8th Street or close there, right?
Yeah, it was one street over.
I think it was 60s, late 60s.
Yeah,
I want to say
early
1968,
70s.
around there. And then Ernesto, who we know now, who's a giant in the industry, he was working for his dad part-time, and when he passed away, he took over the operations. And then fast forward, it went from basically being a factory to they moved production elsewhere.
Dominican.
Right. And so then it got to the point where this now is more or less just a cigar lounge. But the El Tito de Bronze factory is there, right across the street, more or less, right? So it's in the same area. And so that's where you guys went to them and said, hey, we want to pay homage to where this all started in the States, which was in Miami. It was in this area. And so this is that classic cigar that they wanted to bring back for the
we're gonna be working very closely with them over the next 3 years.
They make some great cigars.
And
it smokes differently. It's just a fantastic cigar. Everything that comes out of there, I had to cut mine down because if anyone's watching me as I was smoking it initially, I had to cut it down a little bit further because going from the Bolivar, very easy draw and all that stuff.
Sure.
This is rolled in the more traditional sense.
Absolutely.
In a not better or worse way, but it's got a little stiffer draw. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but the smoke is just, the construction is that classic Cuban, if you will, or traditional, in my opinion. I say traditional better than Cuban, traditional way.
Well, and one cool thing about them is, like, they're pumped to be able to make something for a name.
Ryan, such a good point.
They're pumped to make something like a Partagas, to basically, for a lot of these guys to go back to these grassroots sort of Cuban brands and be able to make something under those flags. They definitely took their time with both of them, the Partagas, the Bronze, and the Cohiba M, of course, which I forget to mention because I don't sell it, but yes. And as well, the La Gloria, they're really pumped to do something for that. Almost.
So the cool thing about this factory too.
All right. Jesus Christ.
The cool thing about this factory is it's a hallway. It's a small hallway, and the way they roll cigars is start to finish with one pair of rollers or one roller. And so one roller is doing this whole box of cigars. They're not passing them off. And so every one of them has their name on that box of cigars. And from what I've been told, when they went to Titan de Bronze, they wanted to make a Partagas, they wanted to make a La Gloria. And these were old Cuban brands that they respected. Cohiba M has gone out of this world. It's been fantastic. But I'm so excited about what they're doing with La Gloria. We got a new 46 ring gauge La Gloria coming out this year from 8th Street. In that $22 price point, 10 count box, as a cigar collector. So tonight you guys said you were smoking this cigar. I went to my collection and pulled it out from like 4 humidors deep because I saved 8 of these because I want to continue to smoke them over time. And I pulled one out tonight to smoke on the podcast. Like, it's a collector's cigar. It's fantastic. It's different. And it's one street over from where La Gloria came from. And they have so much respect for the brand.
I'll say this to 2 Forged guys. The Partagas is better packaged than the La Gloria.
The Partagas.
Yeah, we agree with that.
It's fucked up.
So
man.
I will say this.
Don't do and I'm say this now, and I hope in a year from now it's different. Don't do forged packaging on something that is as good as a general packaging.
The new La Gloria is better packaged.
Good.
Slightly.
Yeah. They really took exception to like that, like teal or sea foam or whatever color that is.
The Partagas packaging was
the Partagas packaging
beautiful.
Incredible.
They actually modeled after the Cohiba packaging.
That the Partagas was out of this world for sure. And I mean,
it's also my favorite cigar we've ever.
If you want to talk about gamble, like basically, John Hakem, our brand ambassador for Partagas, will tell you the biggest gamble they took with Partagas the Bronze was the investment in the packaging. Because they were like, this was not a cheap box at all to manufacture.
It even comes down, Steve. It even comes down to the hinges. The hinges in that box, you can sit it wherever you want, depending on the shelf set. Like, they put a lot of money and a lot of time into that. And I totally agree with what you were saying.
Yeah, I look at it like this. If we're going to comment on this right now, is that Partagas right now through General, right? That's not Forged, right?
Forged. It is Forged.
Forged.
So the Partagas El Titano Bronze effort is it matched Cohiba. Yeah. Now it was a 46 ring gauge, whatever. We're talking about cigars in part 2 here. This one that came out, it was a nice box. It was great. But you have to think about that is that I think Partagas, for the most part, is in that, $10 to $12, $13 range. You already have a La Gloria that's in that $15 range with the Serie R, right? So the fact that I thought that everything from the box, the bands are beautiful, but I think that that's something that you have to take in perspective there. It's like you're only bumping that up like $5-6 for this one. If you're smoking a Serie R Maduro number 7 and you smoke this, that's not what you like. I get that. Partagas, if you smoke a Partagas Black and you smoke the Partagas El Titano Bronze, Partagas de Bronze,
yep,
not what you expect. But you put out similar efforts at the same time, and you put all the effort into the Partagas, and you put some effort into that La Gloria. Do the same thing on both, man. But I also understand that if you're
learning
a brand Forged, so you do the same thing at the same time.
Well, I mean, also when you look at it does stand a little bit more to the look, I would say, of the La Gloria stuff versus. Because like a lot of the La Gloria stuff is pretty plain packaged, you know what I mean? Like versus the Partagas where it's a little bit more bright colors, it's a little bit more
since the rebranding, yeah,
sure, absolutely, yeah.
But as a cigar nerd, like the De Bronce, the 8th Street, they're in my fucking like age cabinets.
I get it.
These are really cool cigars, and like I do agree with you. Partagas did a better job with the presentation on it. We're gonna keep hitting with these Titano Bronze cigars. We gotta deal with them. We're gonna keep moving with it, and I think Partagas and La Gloria, they all should be in any collector's humidor.
Do me a favor and suggest that you should follow La Polina and put a little pigtail on there.
Okay, on La Gloria.
On any of them coming out of there, that's the big thing that I saw from, and Nate, I think you saw it too. La Polina put the Goldies out. Mm-hmm. It was all rolled by the same lady out. She
had like the fan style.
Put that on there. That is such a nice touch on there that doesn't get used.
Well, boy, do I have a surprise for you.
Oh, Nate,
your shirt on.
Nate, do you want to comment on the cigar, or you want to go closing remarks?
I'll do both.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're 3.5 in.
Yeah, I do think that the La Gloria was better than the Bolivar. more body, more flavor. Me personally, I have a harder time with the way that cigar smokes with the price point. Like that.
You don't think it matches 21?
I would have, me personally, if I go to buy a $21, $22 stick.
Where's like your where's the point in the pool where it gets too deep for your normal, like where you're really thinking about what am I buying? Like price point wise, you know what I mean?
I'd say anything over 15.
So once you get past 15, see, for me, it's about 20.
Okay.
Like after 20, I start to go, what am I buying here? You know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
it's like 15, like we talked about 8 to 10 is the sweet spot. It is. I do think there's a lot of phenomenal
I think
cigars.
10, 12 is.
Sure. I'll cut in between. We'll go $4 spread. 8 to 12 is killer.
COVID years.
Sure. 8 to 12. Yeah, you're not wrong there. 8 to 12 is a great spread. I think when you're getting into that 15, 16 range, I think you can still find, for some reason in my head, like 17 to 20 is like no man's land. Like, I don't know why. For some reason, I'd rather spend 22 on a cigar than 18. Right. I don't know why.
You're already up there, right?
Yeah, like why not?
Well, I think there are some of those where you're like, well, I was going to buy this one at 18, this one's 22. At this point, might as well spend the extra $4.
Sure,
because it's a less percentage jump than going from 12 to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree that I think it paired better with the Piggyback, more flavor, more body, stood up to that bottle a little bit more. But I mean, we're talking about a cigar that's 3 times the price point of the Bolivar that we smoked.
Technically, yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's not going to be an everyday smoke for most consumers. I don't think.
And you won't find it though. It's also limited, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it.
Less than 5,000 boxes,
right?
Yeah. I think it's one of those people are going to buy 1 or 2, and then, well, obviously, then it's probably going to be gone. So, but I think the key.
Is that pure Kentucky there, or is that Buffalo?
Buffalo.
I
think the key with that cigar though is you make it a good enough limited edition cigar, so that way when the next one comes out, people are excited and they want to go back and get that next edition.
Yeah. I think the read up that I had on it was huge. I think it's focusing on Ernie and his father.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, from a marketing standpoint, that is where you guys have a challenge from Forged. How do you really push the original El Corrido factory? You don't push the La Gloria. La Gloria Cubana was bought by General or STG, or at the time was Sweetest Match. It wasn't bought from like Ernie now. Like, he does carry a lot of weight because he's got a ton of number one cigars, all that stuff. And I get that part of it. How do you get back to the heritage of his
And
dad?
by the way, that Collection Reserve we did with Ernie was one of my favorite cigars we've ever done.
Agreed.
Holy shit, that was good.
This is a good cigar. No one knows about it.
No one knows about it.
Yeah.
You know what? But now the Bourbon and BS podcast crew knows about it.
Yeah, you stayed around 3.5 hours. You heard about it.
But it doesn't exist anymore, Ryan.
It's the best part.
It's a great cigar. And this is a great part. Closing remarks.
So, to the topic, is it worth the gamble? I think there's a lot of factors that, whatever the decision you're making, there's a lot of factors that have to be considered. I don't think many people consider enough factors when making a decision. I think there's a lot of people that will base a decision too much on emotion, and for good or bad. Sometimes emotion can stop you from making a decision to pursue something. Sometimes you may be in such a terrible place that the first opportunity to do something else that comes along, you just jump at it.
Yeah.
And you don't really look through all the ups and the positives and negatives to it. You're just like, I'm so unhappy where I'm at. The next relationship, the next job, whatever it is, the next thing that comes along, that's an opportunity. I'm just going to jump at it. And I think that's a dangerous way to make decisions, because emotions can benefit you, but they can also damage you. Depend on, the type of decision that you're making. I think you have to sit there and look at like, okay, if I do this, what are the upsides, but also what are the downsides? What are some setbacks that might happen? We talked about the lottery. What if I won the lottery and won a bunch of money? Well, that's more of a positive what if. What about the negative what ifs? Like, what if this doesn't work out?
Sure.
What am I going to do then? And I don't think a lot of people or enough people actually consider that when making a decision. What last thing I'll comment on, Steve, when you were talking about doing job interviews and being yourself, because you were talking about like focusing on yourself, investing in yourself, being your true self, because we always seem like we put on a false front.
You put your best self out there, whether or not it's your true best self.
Yeah.
You don't say in a job interview, right? And they ask you like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Your
right?
job.
Yeah, I want your job. Because you're like, I want to do what I should say now is I hope that I'm still doing better. We had that great conversation about that 5-year plan, right? You know, when you're in a job interview. But I know now if I'm desperate and I need to pay my bills, I'm going to present myself in a different way. But if I'm in a good place, if I know where I'm at, and you're asking me that question, where do I see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, well, ideally, I'd like to have your position or something above you, because I feel like that I've put in the legwork and, I can see myself in that. Or I don't want to be a management role. I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to own a company. I think that I can just absolutely kill it. So all I ask is that you stand by your compensation package and you don't switch it up on me in the next 5 years, because if I kill it, I'm going to make a lot of money for you and I.
Yeah.
And I'll make you look good.
How many companies do we see their sales division like change the comp package like every year?
You're doing too good.
Yeah. We're paying, our sales reps are selling so much. We're paying them too much money. Let's change the comp plan.
Yeah.
And then the next year they're like, well, why the fuck am I going to punish myself and work all these extra hours?
My salespeople are making more than I am. It's like, okay.
Yeah, so
you look good.
Yeah.
There's no ego. Never experienced that.
But
it's natural. It's normal.
Yeah.
But when you talked about that, about putting yourself in an interview and how you present yourself, it reminded me of a story that Brian was telling Friday when you weren't at the store.
Perfect.
Brian was talking about a customer that was hanging out in the store. A couple guys came in, bought some cigars, and they're like, "Hey, you mind if we sit up here at the table with you?" And they just started chatting. They started talking to this guy about, what he does. And this guy started talking about, what he did for a living and, a bunch of other stuff. And those three guys sat there and just talked for 2 hours. And the two guys that worked at this company, they had a position that they really needed. And they literally looked at this guy, and they were like, you know what? We need someone that can do this. You want the job? And he's like, well, don't I need to like go through a whole interview?
Really?
And stuff like that. And they're like, that's what this was. Because that guy had no idea that this was
always looking, right? They're always in that mode.
He had no idea that these guys, the company that they were working for, that they needed to hire someone for a certain position. All he was doing was being himself and being genuine to who he was. And because he had no idea, like he was just letting it fly. He was being natural. He wasn't forcing anything.
He wasn't in a job interview.
Exactly. He wasn't lying about anything. He wasn't being deceitful. He was being genuinely honest because he already had a job. So he wasn't looking for a job. But these guys were like, no, we need someone to do this. And like, this is what this job pays. And it was more money than what he was.
It's funny what you find when you're not looking.
Ain't that?
I
can speak to that.
There's a lot of different ways.
How do you think I got my job?
There you go.
That could be next week's song.
That's
next week's
That's
song.
how I got my current job. I wasn't looking. There was going to be a vacancy in the department, and I knew someone who already worked there. And
who would you know?
My wife.
There you go.
My wife.
Yeah.
My wife.
But honestly, like I applied for that. I applied for that position, and when I first had that initial phone call with my boss, now Like, I think he went into it just like, you know what, I'm doing this as a favor.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't this girl's husband.
Exactly. I don't know if this person's actually going to be what I want, what I need. Yeah, but I'll at least give him a shot just out of courtesy. But he told me at the end of that 30-minute phone call, he says, "This is not where I thought this was going to go. I want to actually have a sit-down interview with you." You know, because there were things I said that actually made him excited about what could happen in the future and what I could bring to the team. So it goes back to when we talked about it, like, be genuine to yourself, but invest in yourself first before you start, pouring all your resources into other people.
Yeah. Jonathan or Ryan, you want to close your remarks?
I'll take my closing remarks. Mine are pretty simple. The topic today was, is it worth the gamble? And my thoughts on that is that there's no advice I can give anybody on if it's worth the gamble. The only advice I can give you is, if you're in a position where you're going to gamble, ask yourself, is it worth the gamble? Because I could probably bet that out of 100 people, 99 people didn't stop to think if it was worth the gamble.
I like that.
I'll just leave it at that.
Mic drop. Don't drop.
Mic drop.
Don't throw the mic. No, don't do it. Jonathan, you got anything?
I'm gonna piggyback on what Ryan said. I think the grass is rarely greener.
You think it's really greener or rarely greener?
Rarely.
Okay,
Rarely
I
greener.
that Georgia was coming out in here for a minute.
Yeah, I got Georgia. It's deep down. I think it is. I mean, I think that we need to all step back and look and step back and listen. And we all get offered, things that sound great. But I mean, when we talk about is the risk worth the reward, I think it sounds so terrible because, like, but this is a podcast where we're trying to tell people to go out and do better and greater things. And you can do better and greater things inside where you're at. Sometimes you need to move on. Sometimes, you've hit your ceiling and it's not going to get any better where you're at. But I think for the most part, I don't think the grass is necessarily greener. And I don't think necessarily jumping ship and going to the next thing is the best idea. And I think, Ryan, you summed it up pretty damn well. So I'll leave it at what you said.
I'll build off of what you just said.
Which is what I just said.
Sure. You know what's worth a gamble because you put everything you had into it, right? So like you said, the grass is not always greener. There's always the other side of it. More recently, I think more people are like, the grass isn't always greener. Or your grass is greener if you put more time into it, right? You nurture it, you put effort into it, you do
fertilize it.
You fertilize it, you do everything. So yeah, you can put all the work in. And sometimes you look at it as the grass is always greener or it's worth a gamble. Wouldn't it be nice if you won that Powerball or you won that lottery? You got that job offer that was worth so much more. And you look at the potential is that it would be so nice if I made this much money for me or my family or for whatever the circumstances or the absolute just big time. If I won the $1 billion lottery, things would be better. You got to continue that on. If you weren't watering or taking care of your lawn, if you weren't taking care of your home, you weren't taking care of yourself. That goes back to what I think we talked about way earlier in part 2 was you're going to be the same person that you were before that opportunity that you're going to be the same person before the opportunity or after the opportunity. And it's a matter of like, are you going to take care of the lawn? If you get that greener grass, are you going to take care of it, or is it going to turn into the same lawn you had before that because someone else was taking care of that, and now you're in charge of it. And you apply the same work ethic, you apply the same effort in general. We all know those people that are in this really long-term marriage, or they're in a long-term career that man, let me learn from you. They're going to be the first to tell you that the shortcomings they had, the lessons they learned, the things that they gambled on and lost, and they bounced back from. But that you don't want to talk about those low moments, the losses. You don't want to hear about that because you just want to hear about how can I drive the car you drive? How can I live in the house that you live in? How can I live in the neighborhood you live in? How can I have that successful marriage and family life that you have? When you really dial into those people that you look up to, if they give you the time of the day to really give you the insight of what they went through the last 10, 20, 30 years, they weren't all sunshine and rainbows. It was not always good.
Yeah.
They may have been divorced. They may have been fired. They may have just left a job because they weren't happy. You learn from those people that you look up to. You learn from them, but you have to learn from their experiences. Who they are now, never who they were. And that's what I was trying to say earlier. My comments about my life is that I'm not the same person. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I don't have this, mansion or anything. I have a nice house that I like to come home to. I have a nice neighborhood. I have good neighbors. I have a great girlfriend, a great dog. All of those things are now. And those are products of what I learned from that. Maybe I'm a safer gambler now than I was in the past, or maybe now I'm taking a chance on myself more than I did before because I was making safer bets in the past, and now I'm making more conscious bets now. You have to put effort into it, always. Sometimes the safer bets, there's no effort. And sometimes if you're just making those big gambles, you keep blowing up in your face, or you make that big hit, and everything's like, oh, I hit it big. Well, you were just throwing money at it. You're throwing your time at it. You're doing all this stuff. And I think at some point you realize, how do you balance the risk and the reward, like you were talking about, Nate, that it makes more sense. It's an educated guess. I know that I'm at that point now in my life that I hope that I can continue to make better and more educated gambles on myself, where it's not a gamble anymore. It makes more sense for me, and therefore it makes more sense for the people around me, whether it be the significant other or the friends in my life or the career that I'm doing. It makes more sense. The employer looks at me as a safer gamble. My significant other looks at me as a safer gamble because we're at that point that we are just reciprocating this productivity, happiness, everything. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Ryan, thank you for being here. I know you love podcasts.
I love podcasts.
So be here next week.
I love more of the bourbon.
We'll see you.
Oh.
See you guys
Cheers,
next week.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Make sure you tip your bartenders.
Bye, Jonathan.
Close this out. It's awkward time.
This is awkward.
It's fine. It's fine.
I was only supposed to be here for 345 minutes. Or 3 hours, 45 minutes. 3 hours.
I'll say 3